Do you want to be a part of the CoCo community? Sure, we all do. So join this free weekly live talk show to find out how easy it is to watch at home and learn about your color computer. At the CoCoNation, more than 9 million men and women have participated in the community without setting foot outside their homes. And now at home in your spare time, you can see what's happening, or even join the discussion. Choose from any one of these segments: panel intros, project updates, acquisitions, CoCo thoughts, featured interviews and events, the Game On Challenge, news, Ron's Garage, CoCo commercials, show coverage, panel goodbyes, or you can join one of our extra shows. You can choose from the Game On Challenge Live or CoCo Tech. Join the CoCoNation right now.
Click the link for the free information TJB Chris spoke about. Then decide if you want to watch the CoCoNation Live Show, the world's leading live weekly talk show featuring the Tandy color computer, its siblings, cousins, and red-headed stepchildren. Visit thecoconation.com. There is no obligation and no salesman will visit you. Visit thecoconation.com.
The CoCoNation show is an unscripted, live, and interactive broadcast. Anything can and will happen. The views and opinions expressed by members of the panel and the live audience are their own, and not necessarily those of the CoCoNation show, its sponsors, affiliates, or subsidiaries. Open minds are encouraged, and a sense of humor is recommended. Thank you for being a part of the CoCoNation.
Radio Shack? Okay.
What?
The 80s called.
Welcome to the CoCoNation, the world's first live and interactive talk show featuring the Tandy color computer and its hardware cousins.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the CoCoNation show, episode 345.
That many?
Yes, that's what I got. Yep, 345. Woohoo! And today we have two special guests, Glen Dahlgren and Doug Masten. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Well,
Good to be back.
Doug Masten's actually our special guest, and Glen is our guest co-interviewer.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Here to support.
Got to keep the scorecard straight. And today on the panel, we have, first up, we've got Ron Delvaux.
Hey, I like being in the first slot, but hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome.
All right, next over, the button pushing monkey. Next up, we got Marco and Grant Leedy.
Hello, everybody.
Next row, we got L Curtis Boyle
Welcome to the show, everyone.
and Rick Euland.
howdy, folks.
And next pitcher is Doug. Right. And Ken Waters.
How's it going, eh?
And next row, we got Glen Dahlgren and Nick Marentes.
The strong,
asleep.
silent type.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what? I need that crickets button. Let's see.
I'm unmuted.
Be the digger.
Oh, you're loud.
Let's see. Brian the Music Man.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
And then we got Jason Coco Man.
Hello, everyone. I've got my Diet Dr. Pepper. I'm monitoring the magnetic flux, and my fun compass is pointing right towards the CoCoNation. So let's get started.
All right. And
Wow,
sneaking
that
in
was-
at the last
that was
second, we
great.
got Bob Emery, who's just all choked up about it.
He's gagging on CoCoNation.
That just
CoCoNation
sounds
is
bad.
not for internal use. Coco for external use only.
Hello. All right. Hi, Bob. Okay. First up, today we have, let's see, the interview with Doug. So Curtis, take it away.
Okay, well, welcome to the show, Doug. And for those of you who don't know what Doug did, this is the Contras that was sold by Glen's company, Sundog Systems.
This is an actual copy of it.
Yeah. I got mine, I think, from
Still
Jim
has
Davis
some.
a little bit later. So
All right. Let me
when he
adjust
was
the
reselling it.
spotlights here. Let me find everybody. There's add that one, and Glen's in here somewhere. There he is. All right, got you guys all
okay,
together.
there we go. So now that people can see it.
Yes. Actually.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah. I've got a few.
You win the contest, Glenn. You have the most copies.
Good.
So at any rate, the Contras is a game that has a long storied history. It took a fair bit of time to release, but it's also one of the most ambitious CoCo 3 games ever done. Especially back then, but even now. I mean, we've had some pretty decent games come out in the last 20, 30 years since Contras, and I'd still rank it in the top 5, especially for technical difficulty in getting it done, which we'll get into in a bit here. But first, I want to get into a little bit of early history with Doug. So, Doug, I was going to ask you, first of all, what was the first computer you ever used? And this can include with friends, at school, at home, whatever.
It's the Sinclair ZX80 that my dad bought.
Okay, the very first ZX80, not the 81?
The 80, I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
It might be the 81, though. It's been so long.
Was it black or was it white?
White. White.
White, ZX80.
90.
Okay. Nick, if you can, adjust your volume a bit down there. You're kind of blowing out there a bit.
All right, we'll do.
Okay. And then obviously, if you had that at home, you eventually got a CoCo because obviously you were doing some work in there. Did you get in with the CoCo 1 or 2, or was it not till the CoCo 3 came out?
I think it's the CoCo 1 I got, the gray case. So
okay. And would you have gotten that fairly early in the CoCo's life, or a little bit later?
I remember having, I think, 4K, so it's probably pretty early.
Okay, 4K. Yeah, that'd be like a D board or an E board type thing. Cool. Yeah. So in that case, you probably got the ZX80 and the CoCo fairly close to each other. Was your dad quite interested in computers and that you get to him set quickly?
Really. I mean, he's was kind of interested to see what it was about, So basically, I got it, and basically I look at, and then I basically put it in a drawer, and then like a couple months later, I got it out, and just like taking off, I just start programming with BASIC like that. So
okay, so you obviously went through the manuals, learned BASIC and stuff.
Yeah. So,
what prompted you? Because you were pretty young at this time too. You were what, in high school or elementary school or middle school?
Probably middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah.
And how fast did you get into machine language programming?
Pretty quick.
And was there something that kind of inspired you to do that, like an article in a magazine or books or something like that?
Basically, all the best programs were like written in a single language. Basically, it was too slow for most things.
Okay. And did you use the Radio Shack or something, or did you use one of the third-party ones like SurComp or MicroWorks or?
Yeah, the Radio Shack's one.
Okay. Did you get into machine language when you still were on the CoCo 1, or did you wait until you got to the CoCo 3 for that?
No, I got it on the CoCo 2, I believe.
Oh, so you had all 3 models of the CoCo at some point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, had you done anything that you were planning on trying to go commercial with, like a game or whatever else in their CoCo 1 and 2 days, and just never got to point of releasing it? Or did you kind of spend your CoCo 1 and 2 time learning, and then on the CoCo 3 decided to make the big jump?
At that point, I was still learning. So even though I was pretty advanced, so
okay.
It was only to the CoCo 3 that I really started programming commercially.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, for a first project that you're planning on actually, shipping out and selling, that's a pretty big one to bite off, to be honest.
Well, actually, I did a TW-80, which is add-on for TotalRider 64. So basically, what I did, I took the TotalRider 64, and basically I modified it to use the capability of the CoCo 3.
Yeah, the 8-column screen and stuff like that. You did that one?
Yeah. So,
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, basically, Marty Goodman and Art Fletcher were my beta testers. So that was a real interesting experience. So initially, Marty basically wrote a tweet of it, that a project sent to me, and basically he's dug on it, about, this is wrong, but at the end of the day, you want to work with me, but he's real great to work with, And initially, I used the touch screen, but Marty wanted to do the graphics on it. And pretty much at the end of the project, I basically wrote a word processor. That's pretty much how advanced it was.
Okay. Did you have any access to the original TotalRider 64 source code for this, or did you have to disassemble it and kind of hook everything in?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically the same thing I think Bob Vanderpool later did with TotalRider 128, where he did a full CoCo 3 version. But yeah, I remember TW-80.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was yours, actually.
And actually, Marty said I should just wrote a word processor, outright, and from there, that's where I kind of sprang up, basically write my first real project.
Okay. Did you have any other projects before Contras then too that maybe you even kept internally just to yourself that were worthy of mention?
I basically wrote a basic add-on. Also going through some old discs, I actually wrote a similar. I didn't complete it though, but because Phantasm is so great though.
Yeah. We keep hearing about it.
Yeah.
We've got permission from most of the original authors now to actually get it released if we can, but I think there's just one left. Who was it when I did Dave's friends? Oh, you still have it there? Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Read too.
Does he still have his hardware?
Yeah, actually, another question. Do you still have any of your CoCos or all of them, or?
Pretty much all of them. My dad did basically built the case for it, but I put it in the shed and it rusted out, so I threw it out.
That was like a repacked into a PC style case?
Actually, I have a picture of it.
Sure. I know in the 90s, especially, that was really, really popular.
I want to
Late 80s
note
as well.
that that disc is red and definitely came from me.
You can't really see it, but in the background there, you see the in the computer on the right side here is the repack, and also my dad repacked the keyboard too.
Okay.
See here, right there.
That's a little bit blurry, but I can kind of see the keyboard there. So
on the side there.
Amount.
Yeah, that's all the picture I have of it. So.
Yeah, I don't have most of mine anymore either. I've got one, I think, when I was my CoCo 1 with 16K and tape or something. I think I have one black and white picture left of that.
Yeah.
So when you got the CoCo 3, obviously you had to spend some time figuring out the graphics and the sound and the interrupts and everything else that got added in with the gimme chip. And it sounds like TW-80 would have been like a first, maybe not the first, but a good attempt at learning some of that stuff, like how the hardware and the MMU worked, et cetera, to get that done. So what made you decide to pick Contras as your first major commercial game to go after? It's based on the Nintendo version, I believe, not the arcade version, correct?
Right, the Nintendo version. Basically, I got up with Color Venture with Eric Tellis, and basically we started decide on what a project to do, you know. So at one point we were looking at doing a desktop program. Then we went to basically a program called City Crisis, which was never released, you know. Basically, I think at that point he graduated college, you know, and kind of went his way. I don't think there's any problems or anything like that, though. But that's when I talked with Glen about Contras.
Okay, because I mean, like I mentioned before, it's still one of the most technically advanced CoCo 3 games pretty well ever released, and to pick something of that scope as your first major one. Was it just like, you know, swarming self-confidence in your part, or is it just a game you really liked and you wanted to see done on the CoCo? Or
I don't know. I was in, you know, on my 18, I was 18 years old, you know, and I thought I was a pretty good programmer, you know, so.
So self-confident, you were confident in your skill to do it then.
Yeah.
But, and then, okay.
But the problem is I never developed a game before, so at the end it kind of weighed on me. What worked initially in my development process, you know, at the end was bogging it down. So
yeah. Well, I know for any 512 gig game, I think you know, Glen, Dave, and a few others we've talked to that have done that kind of thing. And when you're running back with the old floppy drives back in the day and stuff, and it's at least it wasn't tape, because we've heard horror stories from Rick and Dale about those. So when you started the project, I'm presuming you would have started this kind of on your own, and not Glen was not in the picture at all at this point, or did you?
Oh, definitely not. So I did on my own. I said Eric went off I think he graduated college and started his job, you know, I believe, you know, at that point, you know, and City Crisis wasn't really going anywhere. He did have me meet up with an artist, you know, but it really wasn't, you know, the level I wanted, you know. I'm kind of professors on things, you know, so. So that's when I sprint over to Contras, you know, because I played all the time on Nintendo and I loved it, you know.
Okay. So at that point, you wouldn't have had Phantasm, obviously. So you've been using Disk Adtasm from Tandy, I'd presume?
I used the disk version that had the patch for the disk.
Okay. Okay. Did you have patches for the CoCo 3 too, like the 80 column, 40 column stuff too, or just the plain old 32? Do you remember?
That would have been the super patch one.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Roger Schrag, I know, patched the cartridge one for disc early on, because a lot of us used that one.
So
yeah.
And then the cartridge version.
Okay. And then as far as, you know, doing graphics, and one of the unique things about Contras is that it's not only got a soundtrack, but it's a digitized sample soundtrack. Like you've got like drums and stuff like that. It wasn't just the organ music we were used to with like Musica, et cetera.
Right.
Like say, you know, Crystal City, Xenix by Jeremy Spiller. It's just using this, you know, sort of the Musica Lyra style engine. But yours was actually more like a, you know, like a SID chip or something with digitized samples or something.
Right.
How did you do the sound design and the graphics? Did you use tools like Color Max 3 or Color Max 3 Deluxe or CoCo Max 3, or did you do it all by poking in values, or did you write your own graphics editor like Nick likes to do?
I think I had my own version. And basically, I sampled it. My dad actually started the circuit for it to decide the sound samples. I was able to record it in, and from there I was able to edit.
Oh, so you weren't like doing it through the 6-bit ADC on the joysticks or anything? You actually had some special hardware made to do it.
I think it was through the joystick port though, but I had a little conversion for it.
Okay.
Yeah, if I remember right, it came from, let's see here, from this book. So,
oh, okay. Is that a William Barton one? I didn't quite catch it. That is.
I think this actually was the circuit that we used for it.
Okay. Yeah, because that was one thing handy. I remember using that myself. Not that I soldered it, of course, but one of my friends here locally, who might even be in the chat, he soldered one up, and we actually used it for that. So did you record some of the sounds right straight from the Nintendo game itself, or did you try to create some of your own as well? Or
no, I probably sample everything. So
okay,
yeah, it's very tedious. I'm not really musical, so it's very challenge.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, if I remember correctly, you're using the 320 by 225 mode, so you got the extended vertical, and you're using the hardware horizontal scroll register throughout too. So that wasn't something we saw too often in that time period. Maybe Crystal City, Pac Dude 3D Monster Maze, and a couple of others used it. I think maybe some of the Tandy ones might have used it too, but or they might have redrawn it.
When I was talking to Eric with Color Venture about it, basically we at that point nobody was using that horizontal scroll, but we decided at the end to go with it, even though we knew we'd probably lose some sales because the 86 version wasn't at that point, wasn't the same,
Yeah. So about what do you remember roughly what year you started working on Contras? Like seriously? Because I know the first ads with Glen, we'll get into how you two got connected in a bit here, but the first ads were saying new for 91, which was the original plan. And then it eventually came out in 93. But I'm imagining you must have started this quite a bit before, just from the scope of the project. So do you remember roughly, was it still in the 80s when you started on it? Or?
See, it was probably 87 because it was after TWB80. So, but like I said, we had a period where we're trying different ideas. Actually, I did start the desktop publisher a little bit on that. So I had a little bit of code on that.
You were kind of bouncing between projects then at the same time.
Yeah, I'm all over the place sometimes.
Oh, good. I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the graphics itself, like you've got some like overlay stuff, like you have your little medals for your spare men and stuff like that. So did you have like two different, I haven't actually looked at the code in it MAME too much. So is it basically two horizontal scrolling screens that you're flipping between and so you can draw that smoothly so you don't get flicker, or do you remember those details?
Yeah, I use the page flip. So there was two different screens.
Okay, so that's like a Popstar Pilot that Nick did, where to get the smooth scroll, he actually has two alternating horizontal scrolling screens, just to be offset.
But mine wasn't flipping though. I mean, there wasn't a space over there, so because you can go, back,
Okay, and then how far along did you get on it before you and Glen hooked up? And then from both of you, like how did you guys end up, becoming aware of each other to get it sold through Sundog eventually?
Just the ads in Rainbow Magazine at the point.
So you wrote to Glen then, or?
Yeah. I probably had probably half of the first level done at that point. I got in contact with Glen.
Okay, and then you sent like a sample of the code running at that point for him to try out, or?
Yeah.
And Glen, what was your first impression of seeing it?
So I don't remember a ton from that time. So I think what happened was I got a lot of submissions.
Yeah.
And so, I kept my eye out for, something that was really special. And this clearly was something that had a lot of potential. And so, in the CoCo world, we did not shy away from things that were similar to other products. So
unofficial licenses.
Yeah. Anything that had a tie-in to something that was really popular was always a good bet. So it was really clear that this thing could potentially have legs, and so I was very interested.
Okay. And did you guys kind of like try to tie up a contract or something immediately, or did you want to wait till you'll see further progress type thing? Do you remember? I don't know what your normal thing for handling third-party developers is as far as that was concerned.
Well, if it was really clear to me, if it felt clear that he had the capability to make this game, he was showing me examples of his work, and so yeah, if I have a reasonable confidence, I'm going to want to put a contract forth, and so I'm pretty sure that's what we did relatively early on. I wouldn't have done anything as far as production and advertising until I felt we were further on. But I want to make sure that product, or I would have wanted to make sure that product was exclusive to us, because there were some other authors out there who didn't feel that way, and that was much less interesting for me if there was multiple people out there representing that product. So I would have wanted to get that contract in place.
Okay. And do you remember, like your first ads that were mentioning it were for the new for 91 appeared late in 1990, of course. How far along was the game at the point where the first ads started coming out? Do either of you remember?
You remember it, Doug?
No.
Because I know you mentioned that the very first time that Glen saw it, you were about halfway done the first level. So I'm assuming some progress had been made since.
I'm sure that progress. Again, I'm kind of speculating here as to how I would react in a situation like that. I don't remember specifically. I know that progress had been made, and I know that I had assurances that he felt confident that the product could be done within a certain period of time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have advertised it. But definitely, it wasn't done. But I felt like it could be, and it was. I mean, the product had such potential. And I think at that point, I really wanted to have a tentpole in that ad. I wanted something to attract attention, and it was perfect. And so I wanted to say it, and that might have been me getting ahead of myself. Obviously, you don't want to advertise a product until you've got it. But I really wanted to get that out there. And we were at that point headed toward, the decline of the market. And so I didn't want to wait until the market had declined so much that it wouldn't have made as big of a splash. And so I'm sure I got ahead of myself.
Yeah. Well, you weren't the only one. I mean, Tandy is obviously famous or infamous for The Last Ninja being advertised in their catalogs. And, 2 programmers hit that one and couldn't get it done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, stuff happens.
Yeah. And you had other launch titles as well. I mean, that was the same time, I think, Quest for Thelda. That's when you took over Jeremy Spillers from him selling it through a different company, et cetera, too. So you had a whole launch for 91, basically.
Quest for Thelda and Crystal City and Xenix are examples of people who had multiple contracts with other distributors. And honestly, I don't want to say anything out of school, but at least as far as Thelda was concerned, he eventually did make that exclusive because I paid him, and he wasn't getting paid from a lot of the other sales that he was making. So I really tried very hard to keep Sundog's reputation as a place that people could go and get paid. I mean, I showed them exactly what was sold, when it was sold, how much was made, and gave them their cut. So I pride myself on that.
Yeah, and I've heard stories about some other ones, especially near the end of the CoCo market, when a lot of them were just struggling to survive.
Yeah,
we can't pay you yet because we just had to buy discs and manuals, and we're out of money now, type thing. So yeah, it's a tough market at the end of the CoCo.
Although I know that, I hear that, I just don't buy into it. You can always, if you're getting money in from a product, you need to be able to pay your authors. That is an expense that has to happen.
Yeah. So the game itself, and I probably should be playing some here so you guys can kind of see what it looks like. Actually, I'll show some of the ads first before I do that. But so this is the first launch ad. This was from Rainbow, November 1990, and it was kind of the preview of what's going to happen for 91 from Sundog. And as you can see here, it's prominent with the other new releases or new to Sundog releases. Crystal City was already being sold. I can't remember the name of Jeremy's little Go Sub software, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then Xenix, of course, too. And then you had the other mainstays that you already had out, like Sinistar and Kimgai and Soundtracks, etc. So it was one of the 3 flagship ones, and it was the only one requiring 512K. Now, at that point, 512K required games were pretty rare. So this was one that was really showed the potential to CoCo. I mean, it took 3 discs to load it, etc. So it's a large scale project. But But then it encountered some issues, and we'll get a little bit into that. I know, Doug, you were just in high school at the time, and you had university coming up, and stuff in your personal life that was kind of distracting you from things and making it difficult to continue on with the project. And we've heard that from other people before too. Like sometimes you just get overwhelmed with life, and especially at that age, I mean, everything's overwhelming. At least when I remember going to college, my first year, I was like, oh my God, I have homework now. I have to study quite a bit for it. Unlike high school, you can just breeze through it. But basically, it eventually got announced. I think it was the January '93 Rainbow. You had taken out a little partial page ad saying that it's now completed, and it took 3 programmers and 2 years to complete and everything else. So, and then in March, you actually had the official release of it being that it's actually now available, which is here. And this is actually when it went on sale. And now, unfortunately, this is late enough that even Rainbow wasn't around for much longer after this.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually see the progression of the ads because we went from that first one you showed. I actually had just graduated at college, and I was now working for Legend Entertainment. And so that was actually taking a lot of my time. But Rainbow was starting to downsize. And I went from a full color inside front cover ad to that one color, sort of red, black, and white. Yeah. And then this was a half page. So you see things were going the way they were, and it just didn't pay to advertise in Rainbow as much. Yeah. So that was a real shame. Contras could have done incredibly well if we had released it when I first announced it.
Yeah. Well, that point too, I guess, like Tandy, at the time you first announced it, was still selling CoCo 3s, and that was kind of well known. It was on its last legs as far as being sold there. I think Australia and Canada already dropped it by that point from Intertan. But by the time it came out, Tandy had not been producing CoCo 3s for a year or two. And Rainbow was down to being in newspaper format and 16 pages.
Oh, it just makes me sad.
Yeah. But you did get it out. Now, we'll talk a little bit. Jeff Steidel actually came on to help finish the programming for it. And he was known for doing Photon, which is another great original game with great music and stuff too. And he also did the Graphic Express 2.0, which we talked about in one of your interviews, Glenn. It was something that a lot of us got and tried and said, this is really cool. And then we read the manual and we kind of misinterpreted what you had meant about licensing and being able to use the engine. We kind of went, oh no, we're going to get charged every copy. I'm not going to use this. And then a lot of us just went on to do something else, which I wish we'd talked to you in person, because as you explained, that wasn't exactly what you meant.
Yeah, I think that was Jeff's concern. I kind of wanted people just to go off and use it, because that's the best way to have success. Just don't limit people. But Jeff was very concerned about how we'd be represented there, and he was a very, very smart guy, and I really wanted him doing stuff for us. So I let him establish those requirements. By the way, the name, the Contras, I came up with that. It's not too far of a stretch, but I couldn't figure out why it was called Contra to begin with. I don't even know what the story was there, because all I knew was the Contras. So that's why I figured we'd call it the Contras.
Yeah. I know when I bought it back in the early 90s there, like I hadn't realized that the Nintendo version was actually quite a bit different than the arcade one, because I played the arcade one a lot. I used to win it, outright win the game.
Wow.
And of course, that has those little 3D sections you're running through, and you've got that trip up the waterfall and a bunch of things that aren't in the Nintendo or the CoCo 3 version. But I actually found that kind of cool, because I knew the arcade game well enough. Like it was not, I wouldn't say boring, but it was, I knew what was going to happen. You get more alien infested as you go along. And playing this one, I was pleasantly surprised that, there's levels I've never seen before, and there's different things here I've never seen before. So this was quite cool. And another really nice thing about this one was a simultaneous 2-player play, which unfortunately does have a couple bugs. And I think you'd mentioned that, I can't remember if it was with Doug or Jeff or both, but somebody didn't have enough testers around locally to try the 2-player thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So it does freeze up once in a while in 2-player mode. I have seen that, but it's still a great game. Anyway, I'm going to play a little bit of the clip here. This is from Contra Epic Core, our YouTube channel. And I know we've covered another YouTube channel that covers every version of Contras ever made for any machine, anytime, anywhere. And they actually played it right through the end, too, and did a full review of it. I don't know if you've seen that, Glen and Doug, but I can send you a link for it later if you want. Cool. I will warn you, they're a bit critical. But I mean, they're used to playing in the arcade and the more modern systems.
They're going to compare it to everything in existence.
Every other version of Contras in existence. Right. That's exactly what they did, and you got to take that with not a grain of salt. But they don't take into consideration the hardware it's running on and how much of an accomplishment it is.
Yeah.
Of course, you got your famous Sundog logo coming in.
Tom Wartell made that for me.
And this is the text loader, and this is where you have to load in all the disks, and that where it mentions it's programmed by Jeff. And then when you get to the actual graphic version, it's the program by Doug. So it's kind of got both sets of credits in there. And I think if I remember, this is probably about the only game that required 3 disks at the time. I mean, a couple like King's Quest 3 and Leisure Lair, I think. Had
Sinistar did, and Quest of the Star Lord did. I mean, I had a few double floppies. Flippies,
I remember a few two ones. Like I think even Crystal City required 2. But mostly there were like your adventure games if you wanted a really expansive adventure game. But as far as arcade games, there weren't a ton that were.
Sinistar did.
Yeah, Sinistar did. Yeah. I like the fact that you actually list the files that are loading. So if something went wrong, you actually would know what file needed fixing or try to replace.
And you don't think it just went off and froze up on you?
Yeah. Some other ones did.
Yeah. I'm not surprised.
These crossfades. Your first hint, you're getting horizontal scrolling. A little bit of the demo with the sound effects. And when you actually play the actual game, it gets better because now you got background music with, more digitized samples than organ music, plus the sound effects over top of it, plus horizontal scrolling. Is that too loud for everybody here? I should probably ask. Now, I'll just turn the volume down a little bit. I just want to make sure people can hear the sound effects and the music a bit.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask Doug here, I've taken a look at the screenshots from the Nintendo version, and a lot of the shapes, like some of the background mountains and trees and stuff, is pretty well identical. Color differences a little bit because the machines are different, but you wouldn't have had access to the original ROMs. So how did you actually duplicate the graphics on the CoCo?
Basically, I had the screen up on the Nintendo version. And basically, I just copied onto a graph paper initially, and at the end, basically I copied directly over. But in the early stages, I did on graph paper.
And do you still have some of that graph paper? I think you were showing us at the fest. Actually, I'll stop this sharing just for a little bit. I'll pause this because we'll go through some of the levels and stuff too. But if you want to show, what it was like developing in the old days.
Yeah.
Now we're all spoiled with online graphics editors that can render 3D shapes for you and stuff. But
I remember I showed my coding of hand for Warrior King to Dave Dice and just laughed at me.
There's the zero.
Oh yeah, there's one of the sprites itself there.
Yeah.
And you got which palettes you use for each color and
blades with the other,
Yeah, because you have to animate them between frames.
Yeah. There's my notes on it too. But like the data structure. So, and also I noticed, I didn't realize I did this, but for the screens, if you look at the bottom there, as I wrote it in.
Oh, okay. The complete
block to go where.
I was about to ask if you just stared at the screen and froze it and then just drew it, but those would be really helpful.
And that's one of those game guides for the Nintendo version, I'm presuming?
Yeah. This came from a magazine, so that's how they did the first level. So,
I do remember talking to Dave Dyes, like when he was starting to try to duplicate stuff like Gauntlet, where he'd go to the arcade and like have a tape recorder to record the sounds off the arcade machine and digitize it back at home off cassette. And
he did not like doing sound. I remember that.
And here's
I
some
I helped him out a lot.
For the level. You see the notes on
there. Okay.
So the blocks.
So did you actually handwrite some of the assembly code, or did you just go straight in the assembler to try stuff, or a mix of both?
Well, basically on this, that's for the level, so it's the blotch, So I did that manually. So I think Jeff his own compressor thing, to do to draw down instead of doing hand by hand.
Sorry, Glenn, you were saying something too, or?
Oh, I mean that's exactly where I was. I was doing exactly the same. I was typing in my levels, and then I got laughed at, and so I said, all right, fine, I'll spend half a day writing an editor, and so I could just lift up blocks and put them in place, and then just dump out my level. I was just thinking, why didn't I ever do that in the beginning? Because it took so much less time.
Yeah, I know Nick does that now. He writes a little basic program actually, because now we got emulators you can overclock, right? So it doesn't take that long to draw when you overclock it to 90 megahertz. But I think, like the little game that I've worked on off and on, it's the same thing. I wrote a little graphic editor with tiles, and you can just drop them over. It does make things so much easier.
Absolutely. So the first you can see it. It's on the screen. Exactly. You know what it's supposed to look like.
So Doug, after you did the first level, that I'm assuming like the other levels later on, actually, maybe I'll fast forward the video. I'll share that again here to level 2, because the levels actually, it's not like you're just running through mountains, the same thing. Like they changed quite a bit here. So on the later levels, did you write your own little editor too, or were you still doing some of that by hand?
I did it by hand. Basically, from what I remembered, is I did probably 100% of the first level. The second level, I probably did about 80%. And on the third level, I probably only did the background graphics. Then Jeff did all the rest.
Now, was your original intention basically to duplicate the Nintendo one verbatim? Because I know Jeff did take some creative changes on the later levels.
Yeah, I sort of scaled it back at the end, but that's one of the things. So looking back, I should have scaled it back. So, and also I know at the end I also was trying to do with my engine. My engine wasn't written to do the vertical scroll, I want to do the vertical scroll. So that's one like the waterfall, level.
Okay.
So,
but for those and the viewers that are watching here, you can obviously see the second level here is a completely different animal. There's no trees and stuff. You're now going through a kind of mechanical complex. And a lot of people coming after you, etc. Now, obviously, the bonuses here, I think only one of them actually ends up doing one action, basically, rapid fire, I believe. And I'm used to like the spread gun and everything else from the original, so I'm assuming that was probably part of a time crunch, or did you guys starting to run out of memory at 512K? That was another question I wanted to ask, because you're loading so much stuff off 3 discs, and a disc holds 150K or whatever. So were you guys literally running out of RAM to start doing some of this stuff at that point, because you have digitized sound samples and the music and all the level maps, the tiles, the sprites, etc.?
I don't believe I was anywhere close to running out of memory, but like I said, I didn't do all the levels here though. So
and Glenn, do you know was Jeff by the final, like with all the stages in there starting to tighten up, or is it just more of a deadline thing to?
Yeah, I think he asked me, "Is it okay if I only do one?" And I said, "If it gets us done, then yes, it's okay."
Okay. So fast forward to another level here. Or the end of the level, anyway. So here's the hangar zone. Again, completely different tiles again. I do notice that the engine, sometimes you're getting a lot of stuff happening on the screen, like a lot of opponents and a lot of moving things like this, that it does start to bog down a bit. So you guys were hitting the limit of the 6809. I would have loved to see what you guys could have done with a 639 in this case, but...
Oh, definitely.
Man, I never got this far.
There's a lot of cool elements. I mean, like I said, a lot of it's from the Nintendo version, but then the later levels do take a bit of a change from that, so it's a little bit varied, so it becomes its own unique game. And that was something that the one channel where the guy and the girl go through it and review every Contra ever made there, and they were actually enjoying the fact that they did not know what was going to happen next, because the first levels are going, okay, it's a duplication of the Nintendo one, and we'll just play it through. And then they start getting later levels and going, wait a sec, this is totally different. So actually, I think that ended up being a plus rather than a minus of not completely duplicating the Nintendo version. It allowed some originality. There you can see it's bogging a little bit, but.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to mix a palette animation, the hardware scrolling animation, like you're pulling all the stops here. Actually, that brings up an interesting question from your comment there, Glenn. I'm presuming you were probably good enough, knew the insides of your own games well enough that you probably could complete them all. But for the ones that came in from people other than yourself, did you find it difficult completing any of those games? Like, how do you do testing yourself if you can't actually get to the final levels?
Yeah, there were a few games where I didn't play all the way through, and I just either didn't have the time or the talent to get to the end. Which I kind of trusted my authors to do that on their own if they're developing it. But it also depended on the game. I remember when I was doing most of the work for Sundog, I was also full-time trying to get my Bachelor's of Science in computer science at college. So I was doing finals, I was doing projects, I was in the lab most of the time. So I really had to spend the time where I could.
Yeah. And then, Doug, you hit some of the same thing, too, because you were getting ready to go to college and stuff, too. So, and plus you still had your school studies, et cetera, in high school. You know, why you're trying to get a monster game like this done at the same time. So I imagine you were under time crunches that probably became quite stressful.
Yeah, I believe I was out of high school at that point, though. I was going to junior college at that point.
And were you going like a full-time student or a part-time student at this point?
Full-time at that point.
Full-time, yeah. So you had a full, most full-time students have maybe a little part-time job, and then you're trying to, pull off a game of this magnitude as well.
I was lucky in that I had some really sympathetic professors that gave me credit for the work that I was doing on the color computer. One of my independent studies was the UI work I did for soundtracks, and my graphics final was Kyum-Gai to be Ninja.
Yeah, I never had that opportunity. I think I got to use OS9 Pascal a couple times, and Basic 9 before that because it was close to Pascal for one of my Pascal classes. I could cheat a little bit, but not actually use the CoCo per se for doing things. Yeah, these flamethrower things, this is one of the places where it tends to slow down if you get a lot of stuff going on the screen at once. I'm seriously considering at some point in the future of going into the Contras disk images and see if I can turn native mode on just to give that extra 10 to 15% boost and just see if that kind of smooths out, where the CPU is getting a bit overloaded. Now, Doug, did you notice that the CPU was getting overloaded on some of the levels you worked on originally? Or were the levels a bit simpler at that point so that they didn't quite, use as much juice out of the CPU?
Probably not, but basically I timed the music with the horizontal scrolling like that. So.
Yeah, I mean it's impressive to get, a multi-track digitized sound sample music track plus the sound samples itself, and plus even with the horizontal scrolling not taking much CPU time for the horizontal scrolling, though you have to page flip between the two to get it smooth. But having all these sprites and bullets and everything else all going at the same time too, like there's a lot to keep track of. And I don't know what the sampling rate. Do you remember the sampling rate used for this sound? It's like 4 kilohertz or something, 5, 6 maybe.
I can't really give you an idea on that.
So no, I've seen variety. Like Nick, I think most of the time yours are usually around the 6 to 8 kilohertz. And if I remember, Jeremy Spiller mentioned that Xenix, I think he's using like 3.5 or 4. Because he wanted to concentrate more on the graphics and the music. Nick, do you remember what yours are?
Yeah, they're around the 6, 7 mark, yeah.
I do want to show a little bit of the enemy lair here a little bit later here. I like these little touches, like go back with blood and stuff.
There's Jeff.
Yeah. Shows a little bit of a sense of humor for it too. And I know the project was a bit stressful on everybody because it was, taking quite a while and it's very complicated and huge. And Ken, have we covered Contras on the Game On Challenge? I can't remember.
Yes,
I think we did quite a while ago, I think.
Yeah.
So I
And then,
assume,
go ahead.
the firing is where you just hold the button down and it just fires continuously.
If you have the power up that does rapid fire, I think, if I remember correctly. And yeah, like the arcade game original, you actually have the scrolling credits at the end and the kind of explanation of what went on.
Oh, I must have done some sound work.
But you get yet another. I'll just back it up a little bit here, but another music track for this credits too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not the same as the main one. But you can hear how good the engine is. Like, it's not just playing the organ music like most CoCo games did. It's you got drums and. Anyway, I'll stop sharing that. Anyway, it still is one of the most impressive games in the CoCo 3 period. I'll stay on that till I die. So I wanted to thank both of you, Glenn, for getting it out there, even though it took so long to get it completed. Doug for initiating the whole project in the first place, and pushing the CoCo 3 to its limits. In an alternate time universe, when Tandy put a 6.309 in instead of a 6.809 because it was available at the time, and what they could have done then. But and also a thank you to Jeff for contributing his part of finishing the project off and stuff too.
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess for both of you, I mean, considering this was one of the last projects that Sundog released, and Doug, this was the last CoCo game I think you ever did.
Oh yeah.
Looking back on all the stress and the sheer magnitude of the project there, how proud are you of it now, seeing it again like we're just playing there, and then knowing how it compares to other CoCo 3 games before or since? What is your kind of your final thoughts on it? Like, was it worth all the time and trouble, do you think, or can you be proud of the accomplishment even if things didn't go super smoothly? Or
I'll let Doug start.
I mean, I never thought I'd be to a game and to come out as good as it did. So
you're still proud of it then?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of things I wish I'd done different though on the development. With like I said, things in the beginning, that really helped the push the development forward. At the end was a bottleneck. So. Because basically, I know initially I was using that Atasm, and my compile times were, I don't know, pushing about 45 minutes, just for one compile. And after I got Phantasm, basically it got dropping about half. So, and that gave me more leverage, but I should have rethought my processes, broke the, so it didn't compile as much, and that would help with the development. But
yeah, how late in the program did you get Phantasm? Like, were you ready? Like, were you starting the second level or something?
Actually, it wasn't Atasm. It's the one from the what's the other one from the guy from Las Vegas?
Surcomp.
Yeah, Surcomp. Yeah, I was using that.
Bill Vergona's. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he actually had a CoCo 3 specifics. Similar to.
Yeah,
as far as the timeline goes, I must have given it to him immediately, as soon as we entered into a contract, because there's no reason I wouldn't.
I know you gave me like the soundtracks, which I used, samples. I they clean them up like that. So,
yeah, but I've got soundtracks actually back here myself. So
yeah, I would have just checked with Dave, make sure everything was kosher, and then I would have sent it right over, because Lord knows I wanted to,
Mhm.
decrease that compile time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Taking 3/4 of an hour to compile once to try to fix one bug at a time. Oh my God.
Believe me, I mean, I knew personally how much of an improvement that made to my process.
Mm-hmm.
I'll answer your question as well, which is, was it worth it? And I will say financially, probably not. From a heartbreak perspective, it was really hard on everybody involved. But we're sitting here talking about it. So anything that sort of leaves a legacy like that, I think is absolutely worth it. I mean, it's definitely a monumental achievement, and it put its mark in CoCo history, and so that is worth it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I remember when Doug approached me at not the last CoCoFEST, but I think one or two before that. And he was a little bit shy. I can't remember. I was blabbering about Nitrous 9 or something stupid, but he kind of came up to me from behind and mentioned that he was, Doug Masten. And I think if I remember correctly, I paused Contras Doug Masten because I hadn't gotten a hold of him before that. And we started talking about possibly getting him on the show. And I think it took a year or two before we finally managed to arrange it all. And then, there was some other issues. We had to delay it for a bit. But I'm glad it actually has happened now. But yeah, I mean, even today, it's still one of the best CoCo 3 games, period. And on the technical side especially, but it's also fun to play. Like we get, like, I see a lot of Amiga games on the Amigos channel where it's like a tech demo. It looks and sounds awesome, plays like crap. And that's not the case here. This actually has both. It's fun to play. It's really fun to play in 2-player. Someday one of us is going to have to go in and see if we can figure out the last couple of bugs there. Because it does freeze up every once in a while. Only on 2-player, it doesn't do it on 1. But yeah, I would like to do that, and maybe 6 or 9 eyes, it a little bit just to smooth out the places where it's getting really, really busy. Now, to go a bit further on, after that happened, you were in college, you were kind of getting into other things, Doug. So what, and you can discuss as much detail, as little detail as you want, for privacy concerns here, but what have you been up to since?
Oh, on the computer?
No, just in general. Like, did you stay in programming? Did you get into something totally different, or?
No, I didn't do any programming after that for Contras. So I did get a MS-DOS computer, but after a while, my 100 meg hard drive crashed on me. And after that, I didn't have the motivation really to continue. So I was doing some development work, but nothing really, to speak of. After the hard drive crashed, lost all my programs,
So did you didn't stay in the programming industry even on PCs or anything else after that? You went into something totally different?
No. So,
but I have noticed that you have gotten a bit involved in the CoCo community again recently, because you've actually got some credits on some utilities and stuff here. If you want to talk about some of that a little bit.
I started getting back into actually, Bitcoin stuff. I was mining that. That kind of got me back in the technology stuff. And from there, I started learning how to program again. So that's kind of not to the
So
level.
you did no programming like for decades after?
Yeah. Nothing.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I thought you kind of, maybe as a hobbyist, kind of kept a little bit inside, but you were totally away from it.
I was real into technology though, but as far as programming though, probably not. I mean, I did a little bit here and there, So
okay.
And every once in a while, I do stuff at my job, So, but it's not really my job title though. So it's outside.
Yeah.
So
just a little bit on the side once in a while when you needed to, basically.
So actually, I think one time I actually got the Source of the Year for it too. So
oh, really?
Kind of nice,
Okay. Because I know you go ahead.
Didn't know how to program, so I was able to migrate some data over for them. So
okay, because I do know you got involved with some compression decompression routines that actually made it back to the CoCo
right
in the last few years. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and how that came about and exactly what it is? Because I think some of our viewers probably don't have a clue about it. But
well, basically, I started with developing a game engine. I wanted to make something new, fresh, and part of that was the compression. So basically, I initially started with basically the ones out there right now, but I wasn't too impressed with them. And I saw about the LZSA from Emmanuel Marty, and he developed basically a 8-bit version of the LZ4 like that, But then I saw on his GitHub he had a code for the ZS80 ZS0, and I looked at that. I was really impressed with the layout. So, as a matter of fact, I did some tests, and actually, Contras probably could be compressed to one disk using that.
Holy cow!
I haven't done the effort, extracting the data, but I believe it can go into one disk. But I also think kind of impressed me with the ZS80 is too. ZSO is that basically requires brute force for the compression, whereas most compressions you don't do brute force because the data takes too long, But with using a 64-bit space, it's pretty reasonable on the time,
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, the decompressor is actually very small and quick, right?
Yes,
if I remember correctly. It's more meant to be creating something to decompress it, and the compression's not so much the issue.
I probably use it for real-time stuff though, but basically it's designed for loading data off a disk, Oh, I see, and that the original program, the tape,
Okay. Now, was there any compression at all on Contras, or was that just raw samples for sound, raw graphic tiles?
Yeah. If it was, wasn't that much.
Yeah, I didn't know some of the games, graphic adventure game stuff might use RLE compression or something similar. Maybe like ColorMax and CoCoMax did very simple stuff,
Right.
but
when we were doing 128K, yeah, compression, we absolutely were looking into compression. As soon as we went to 512, it's like, screw it. We're just going to use as many disks as we want, whatever. We got loads of space to fill. Let's not even worry about it. At least that was my experience. Or at least that was Dave's. That's what Dave told me when he made Sinistar. It's like, I'm going to do as many disks as I want, right? I said, okay.
Yeah, it's always a disappointment to me, and I've talked to this with Mark Siegel and others. I mean, Tandy kept upgrading their drives. I mean, they went from 35 to 40 track, and then the FT502 was actually a double-sided 360K drive, and they never advertised it as such. It was like, this holds 153K and still does. They never updated the basic. OS 9 can handle it, but I mean, you're not going to write a game like this under OS 9 unless you basically use it just as a loader, and then you kill OS 9 and just run it on your own. Yeah, it's a bit disappointing that they never did upgrade the basic ROM. I know they had some issues with Microsoft, et cetera, but having a 360K capable disk ROM for this basic, and you guys could have did this all in one disk even without compression, would have been awesome. But
at reduced cost of goods.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to make one disc for a game instead of King's Quest, which had, what was it, 5 double-sided flippies.
I remember before Rainbow Fest, me and like a couple of buddies would just be in my dorm room all night just making discs.
Yep. I had to do the Nitrous 9, and we only had 2 discs to copy, so I can just imagine for these 3 or higher. That's a bit nuts.
Luckily,
so
we had what was the piece of software that loaded everything from a disk into 512K and just dumped it. So we
512K backup or something like that.
Yeah, that helped a lot.
Yeah, single pass. So Doug, you got back in the CoCo doing some of the decompression compression routines, and I know some people actually use them. I've seen some credits, like Jamie Cho, I think, used it in a couple of them too.
Yeah.
Do you have any desire to get back into actual either gaming or user software versus subroutines and utilities for the CoCo?
Yeah, I'd like to. Just got distracted at life, So, but
yeah.
Well, I said the ZS zero is basically part of that. It just one part of it,
Okay, and then the other one I wanted to ask you about. You'd mentioned that other game that you had started before Contras with Eric. Which you said wasn't really going anywhere. Now, I don't know if you meant by programming wise or design wise or where that stalled, but is that something you would consider reconsidering finishing now that you know what you know and there's much better, development tools and stuff, you do it much quicker?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a copy because I looked at the disc, but it's been overwritten. So, but
no,
shots at least of the logo.
Well, at least you kept some of your historical documents, because I've lost a lot of mine.
There's City Crisis.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Now since that was done before Contras, was that going to be a CoCo 3 game or was that a CoCo 1 and 2 game?
Oh, CoCo 3.
CoCo 3. Okay.
No question about that.
Yeah, I'm guessing you probably have no desire to write a CoCo 1 and 2 game nowadays.
No.
And
Does
Glen,
anybody, are people doing that?
Yeah, well, we've had a couple of new releases. Paul Shoemaker's released some, like Ghost Rush and Camel, and
That's awesome.
yeah. It's like the whole point of retro is the nostalgia, right? And some of the people grew up with a CoCo 1 and 2, and by the time the CoCo 3 came out, they went to an Amiga or a Tandy 1000 or whatever. So they don't have a connection to the CoCo 3 that, some of us have, type thing.
Yeah,
So,
those of us who were there at the time were like CoCo 3, thank God.
Yeah.
We would never go back and actually develop for CoCo 1 and 2 unless,
Yeah, it's kind of ironic because we've been discussing a lot about the deluxe CoCo with Mark when we interviewed him, and that was going to have like a real sound chip, an AY chip. It was going to have an RS-232 port, a real hardware 16551 built in. It was going to have the extended keyboard like the CoCo 3 does. An expanded basic, with a RAM drive and a bunch of other stuff built into it too. But if they had done that, the CoCo 3 would have been delayed because it would have just brought the deluxe out in 84, 85. It might not have came out till like 88. And would Tandy have even bothered at that point? Because they were kind of iffy on the CoCo 3. They said basically, okay, we'll do a CoCo 3 if you can make it cost less to produce than the CoCo 2 does. And the Gimme chip is what saved it because they combined the SAM, the VDG, and everything else in this one chip, and they could get it a little bit cheaper. And that's the only reason it really came out. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how history would have gone the other way. The CoCo might have died in 87, 88 completely, from the deluxe, because the deluxe would have cost more to produce because it had all these extra chips on it, plus all the old ones. And it wasn't as much of a hardware upgrade. I mean, it had some pretty cool stuff built in, like the sound and the RS-232, but that's it. The graphics was still VDG based. It had the lowercase VDG. It did have a little phase shift thing. You could change the text screen to be white on blue, I think it was, instead of black on green. So it would have been a bit easier than that, but still 32 columns. So the Gimme, went up to put graphics up like a EJ color palette with CJ res, and that was a huge thing. The timer, programmable timer, which is probably the best compromise they made, because I know they were asking for sound chips and stuff and some other things, and basically the compromise, well, we'll give you a timer so you can at least try to do some decent sound, which Contras literally proved was worthwhile with the digital sound effects and the digitized music. So Doug, are you planning on coming out to the fest this next year in May?
That's possible. So,
because I know I didn't get a much chance to stop by your booth to go through all the paperwork of the original graphics and some of your notes and stuff, and I'd love to actually see it in more detail. And I will make the time this time. Because I love the old history of this stuff, and I know, like Glen, you're going to be on in a couple of weeks again to promote your new book, and we're hoping maybe you can find some of your old notes to show off. If
they're back there, I just have to get into the garage and find them. But I have reams.
But you've been so busy with book signings and stuff lately, you probably haven't had time.
Yeah, but I will before next time I come. I'll have some stuff to show.
Yeah. I love the archaeology of this kind of stuff, and like going through, like Nick's gone through some of his old discs and found games he started that he stopped working on and totally forgot they even existed. And we've actually seen them running. I found a few of my old ones too. And because sometimes you get going on a project and you're going, either the game all of a sudden just doesn't interest you and you don't know where to go with it. Sometimes it's a technical issue you can't get past. So just finding those historical bits, like what could have happened, or sometimes it rekindles to the point to where the developer will go, you know what, I'm going to finish it now 30 years later. What the heck?
I think I finished everything that I attempted on the color computer. There were things in my later world on the PC that I have design documents and all kinds of crazy stuff that never saw the light of day. Not quite the same meaning for this audience, however.
Yeah. And Doug, like you mentioned, that first game, you were just showing us the graphic paper of the title screen. You did have some other projects that were started but never finished as well. Now, was there any games that you had ideas for? Because you were mentioning you were like me, where you jump between projects simultaneously. Were there other games that you were kind of planning on, never got to the programming stage, or got very early on, and then you kind of end up dropping?
Nintendo version of Battletoads.
So was that?
Battletoads.
Battletoads?
Battletoads.
Yeah.
Oh, Battletoads. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got Contras though instead.
That was a good choice.
Yeah, I think so. I was going to ask people on the panel here. First of all, how many of you guys have played Contras? And this goes for the chat as well. And what was your impression of the game from both a technical standpoint and the playing standpoint? And then, Mark, I haven't had a chance to monitor the chat much. Has there been any questions firing in from the chat that we should address as well?
Not been looking really closely, unfortunately. A lot of comments, but I don't remember specifically any questions, but I'll look here.
Okay. And then some of the game players on the panel, like Ken, who's played Contras before, what is your impression of the game, as far as it's standing in the CoCo 3 game realm?
I definitely enjoyed it. I mean, I've never played the Nintendo version. Like you, had only played the arcade version, so it was a nice thing to get into playing something where there was different levels and it felt like a different game, really.
Yeah. Yeah, the first level
Almost
kind of
like
teases you. It looks
yeah.
like the arcade kind of, and then when you get the second one, wait a second.
When you got into the second level, it almost feels like a sequel to the arcade game.
Yep. Yeah, I can agree with that. Anything in the chat there, Mark?
Not seeing anything except, not seeing anything except for Rocky Hill asked a question and Ken Reichert answered it about Konami's code.
Oh, Konami code.
Yeah.
Dave and Sharon Veery has a question. Glenn, when you wrote the Predator, did any of your game testers get to level 2 the same day?
Or
Predator?
ever?
When I wrote the Predator,
He didn't write Predator.
He didn't write Predator.
That was Greg Zummel.
Okay.
So no is the answer.
Honestly, if he had written Predator, do you think we would have him as a guest on this show?
Oh,
That's a bit too much of a slam. Greg's done some good stuff.
Anything related to Predator, the answer is always no.
Like, I didn't mind RoboCop, but Predator is just too hard. It's too difficult to play. It's got a lot of levels. It's got some pretty detailed graphics to also use the horizontal scrolling and stuff too, but the game is just too difficult. And we were talking during the Steve Bjork tribute, like it was one of the things that he talked about on one of the conferences, is that he tried to balance the game. Like if you started dying, he would back the difficulty off when you went on to your next life so that you didn't get so frustrated you just threw your hands up in the air and quit the game and left.
This wasn't on a ROMpak, was it?
3 discs.
Okay, but could it have fit on a ROMpak with the later versions having the larger ROMs or anything?
You mean the built-in MMU hardware?
Bank switching.
It would have been really expensive because this game is 512K, and I mean the ones that Greg did, Predator and RoboCop, I think they maxed out at 128K or something.
Right.
So it wouldn't have been able to go on a program pack.
Probably not, unless you made it the size of a disc controller or something. That would have also greatly increased the price too, because that would be bigger ROMs, more circuitry. That would have been like a $60 cartridge, I'm sure.
Right.
Hey, which nowadays is just normal.
Yeah. For the two of you, I mean, you've probably seen eBay prices have gone through the roof the last year or so. I mean, CoCo 3s are going for $300 now for a 128K.
300. I wish I could get one that cheap.
Yeah.
Another question I got is, did you guys ever go to the Tandy versions of PC? From
like the 1000s, you mean?
Yeah, 1000s, or
like
did you do any programming?
My dad had 1000.
And what did you think of it? Sometimes.
Yeah, I guess if you guys did go that route, did you guys ever consider writing for those later on?
Probably not.
And Glenn, I don't think you went that route. You went to a...
No, I went straight. I can't even remember the brand of the PC that I ended up with, but that's what Legend was making. So
yeah, so was that 386, 46 level?
Yeah. Actually, 286 when I started.
Okay.
So I think I got a 486 just when I got the first iteration of the Unreal and editor. I got it because I couldn't run it on the 386. Nothing moved. So we bought that just so I could actually edit the world, or even the tiny little world that I was creating.
And Doug, what machine did you go to afterwards at home?
So basically MS DOS, knockoff. Basically covered by Insight. So
okay. And were you in DOS at that point, or were you getting into Windows 3 or 3.1 at that point?
DOS,
or
so
DOS?
also I think I had the Windows 3.1 too. So but
Did you guys build any PCs as time went on?
Oh yeah.
No.
Not
me.
I have the money.
From the shopper.
I think I was buying things through Gateway and then eventually Dell. But Gateway, it was interesting that they ended up paying us money because we produced a game called Gateway, and we had the trademark for it. So
they had to pay for the trademark.
So they had to actually pay us.
Every cow box you got money.
There's a question from Alan, Exile in Paradise. He is asking, Doug, was there anything you couldn't get into the Contras that you still wish was there today?
Yeah, probably the vertical levels.
The vertical scrolling levels, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, is there any...
Also the last level 2 of the Nintendo version, like that one.
Okay. Yeah, because there's not very many games on the CoCo that do full 4-way scrolling. There's a couple, like Digger 3 is one. Trying to think of anything else. I guess Pac-Dude 3D Monster Maze does, because it
that's
goes...
kind of limited though, in Digger 3 though.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you start getting into both vertical and horizontal scrolling, especially if you have to page flip to keep it smooth, if you have overlays of like scores and stuff, you're starting to use a lot of RAM.
What do you guys think of Neutroid?
No comment.
Smoothly done, Doug.
I just had to, sorry.
I didn't hear Nick
Best
respond.
answer ever.
Okay, well, despite the symmetrical book stacking, I think he's human.
What was that, Rick?
Oh, I said, despite the symmetrical book stacking, I think Doug's human. That's a Ghostbusters reference to kids out there.
Exile in Paradise, Alan's asking me, holy moly, did Curtis pay Ron to toss that line out there? No, I didn't.
No. Glenn, do you have any color computer stuff? Currently, I know you said you had notes and stuff, but do you have actual working systems at home?
Yeah, I do. I don't, right now it's on the bottom of a pile of boxes. So I don't actively use it like often. But it's there and it's operational.
Cool.
I remember I actually got out when we moved here. I got out my color computer stuff, and my kids were just fascinated. And so I set it up and let them play all my games. And so for a while, they had their own little before phones were a thing. They had a computer to play with, and that was a really nice moment because they got to see not only the computer and the software, but a huge piece of my life. They got to see my story as written in all of these games and stuff, and that was pretty neat.
It's strange that your life is digital.
I don't know if my life is digital, but a large portion of it is. And, well, I mean, it's basically creative is the way I see it, and that was one form of expression, and there are a lot.
Yeah, because when you got into the PC side of things, you were doing more of the design work. You weren't actively doing the programming as much anymore. I think a little bit at the beginning, but basically that went the way
exactly. I was hired as a programmer, and I worked on Time Quest and a couple of other products after that. And I ended up still helping out, but mostly, I ended up doing design and direction and art direction and voice direction, and so I was all over the place. But I left programming behind pretty quickly. I was not as good of a programmer as I was these other things.
Yeah. Did you guys both work late into the night, maybe wee morning hours at best, or were you good in the morning, or did it matter?
I'm a night person, so definitely
night.
I used to be a night owl completely. I would do everything at night, and now I can't sleep past 8. It's crazy. My schedule's completely changed. And I don't know if it's because of everybody's in the house and they're all working from home, and so that and taking people to school and all of that. So my body clock just changed completely based on everybody
Family
else's
and
schedule.
stuff, yeah.
And, my
And Doug, are
cat-
you still a night person like you were back then, or?
Somewhat. Not as much so.
Yeah, I'd basically say I'm probably the same as Doug then, because I do tend to do better programming at night. I don't know why my brain kicks into an extra gear at that time. Plus, there's less distractions, as you mentioned, because other people might be sleeping. The cats might actually, take a break for a while or something. So, but yeah,
I found that I actually do my best writing now when my son really liked when we went to Starbucks. And so every week we would have this like 3 to 4 hour time when we go to Starbucks and work. And so my brain now tells me, oh, it's time to work during that time. So it doesn't even matter if I'm prepared or whatever. I'm going to get stuff done during that time. Really helpful. And it's very important for my relationship with my son.
Cool.
Do you guys think young kids have a future in anything CoCo? It seems like there's so many extra things to jiggle in front of somebody's face now that, this old stuff is like, I don't know. Doesn't seem like we're going to keep up. Like, if we all die off, then what happens,
I think it's very hard for people to get introduced to it. Even if they had an inclination to be interested in this sort of thing, they would have to work really hard to find that path. And that's kind of the shame. Because yeah, it's like the people who are still nostalgic about it, we're not going to be around forever. And so where do those people even discover it?
YouTube. I will say though, like at the last few CoCoFests, though, we've had more younger kids turning out, like preteens and stuff. Like Charlie from Porta Coco, for example, is one who's actually actively involved with his dad in making hardware projects. Doug, you saw that at the show with the portable Cocos with the batteries and stuff here. And Jacob, Bruce Moore's son, has been active on helping his dad with stuff too. And there's some. It might have to be like a parent that kind of like you did
generational thing that they're passing on their interests. But that world has got to be very small.
Yeah, I have seen like on YouTube because I think during lockdowns, people had to start getting extra hobbies they didn't have before because they were bored at home. And some younger people did pick up on retro and have stuck with it. Not everybody did. Some people just took a look at it for a year. And then when things went semi back to normal, they just picked up their lives where they left off, basically. But a few have actually stuck with it and have actually gotten kind of interested. And I think it's because some of the people that are interested in programming or hardware design, the generation in the 70s and 80s of computers is where you could still fully understand the machine, both from a hardware and a software perspective. So you could actually learn like how an operating system works or how a graphics driver works or how to make a hardware card to do whatever. Whereas now everything is so technologically advanced, both software and hardware, you have no idea what's going on under the hood. You have a clue. You're running somebody's library that's doing something else, and if it has a bug, oh well, I'm screwed, type of thing. Or you try to figure out a workaround. So I think there's a little bit, but like you said, it's very limited. It's very niche. There's a little bit, which is to me is a little bit encouraging because I really thought it was just going to die off completely. But there's a little bit of hope.
That's awesome that there is some hope. But I guess it also depends on what drives you to make something. Because if it's to master the hardware, then it's for your own personal satisfaction, those two things can combine great to work with the CoCo. But if it's to express yourself in the best way possible,
then you need the modern.
The CoCo was the place for me at the time to do that. It was like, one of a few options I had out there. And the possible upside was that I would reach an audience that would like it and buy it. So those things don't exist for the CoCo anymore. If anybody really is interested in expressing themselves to the point where they have a vision, the middleware that exists for these other platforms will let that happen. So they can work with the Unreal Engine, they can work with Unity, they can work with something else and create something that is much better than they could do on their own.
Yeah.
So, that's a hard, you have to figure out what is the itch that they're scratching. And how can the CoCo scratch that itch? And that's tough. It's tough nowadays to compete with every other option that they have.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Yeah, the creative side of things is the one that I think stays with the modern tech because you always want to push it to the limit.
Right.
With virtual reality or the 3D graphics and models and stuff like that now. But
my son's like 38 and he has a recording studio and he uses, modern, his software is downloaded, from the cloud, and he has to pay for it all the time. So, but he grew up with the CoCo around, when he was a little kid and stuff. And he's coming to CoCoFEST with me again. He came last year. And he does have a little bit of an interest in it, but I think it's more like, yeah, I'm with you, Dad, type thing.
Exactly.
It's a bonding moment.
Yeah, but he does know he could run a program if he wanted to because he remembers the syntax, which I thought was pretty cool. And sometimes you wonder if he's doing that to because he's interested or because let's show Dad that we appreciate him.
He's humoring Dad.
That is the difference in the day. Do you want to know how computers work, or do you want to write a video game? In the day, you had to learn how computers work to write the video game.
Yeah.
But now you don't. Just learn Unity engine.
It was not easy either to learn all that, especially given the resources we had at the time.
Yeah, where do you go if you had a question or something, right?
Exactly. And it was frustrating. It was really frustrating for people who didn't have like a community around them that they could ask questions of. I mean, I gotta say, I learned so much when I met Dave. And I didn't have anybody else like that. I was trying to figure it all out on my own. And that's why he laughed at me a couple of times because I wasn't doing things the right way, but he had his own community of people around him. And so, there had to be an upside. There had to be something that you were striving for in order to put up with all of that frustration. And now there is more of a community. There are people you can ask if you have issues, but there's less of an upside. It's like you create something, the amount of people that you're going to reach is much smaller. They will be very appreciative if you create something cool, but it's only going to be a limited number of people.
Yeah. And actually, Doug, I was going to ask, since you've actually gotten back into the CoCo a little bit with like decompression and compression routines, and you're also thinking about doing some games and stuff, for you, is it a purely nostalgia itch, or is it, I think I could pull off something even better than I did back then because I've learned so much since then? Like, what's your driving force for doing this?
Well, there's something I can do better than I did back then. There's so much information available nowadays, which wasn't available back then. Back then is very difficult. Basically, the way I learned is basically just assembling other, programs, games. So, yeah, the information wasn't
readily available. You'd have to really, like you said, disassemble somebody else's. And magazines would cover you at the beginning, but most magazines didn't get that technical. Like the stuff both of you were pushing. It was not the stuff you'd read about in Rainbow in a column, how to do it.
Right.
Are you
unless
guys
you knew
readers?
other programmers.
Do you guys read a lot? I mean, there was a machine language program book by Barden. It was out. I mean, did you consult that all the time? Or, besides having, you had to learn it somehow. How did
there was two things, right? There was that, and there was the manual. That Tandy produced. And so those are the only two things I had to work from. And I remember I had a friend of mine who was sort of tangentially interested in the color computer, but he actually ended up doing a lot. He was the guy who did our protection scheme. He helped a lot. He was way more knowledgeable about the color computer than I expected him to be. And he hated our source material. He used to yell at it because he was like, where are the examples? They don't explain how to do anything. They're just giving you some information. So it was rough. I read what we had. I read what was available at the time.
You too, Doug?
Yeah. I'm not sure. What was the question again?
No, the book that came out, Machine Language Programming by Barden, William Barden.
Oh yeah, I read that. So
yeah. So did you use that as a reference while you're doing stuff, or
to get started, I did.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really anybody available, that I could talk to. I was so much more advanced than even my teachers, So
yeah, and even the Barden book. I mean, that was CoCo 1 and 2, and both of you really got heavily into the CoCo 3. And like Barden didn't write a sequel. Lawrence Teppel did bring out a little bit later on that helped somewhat, although he had a couple of mistakes in it too that he had to correct later on. Like he thought there was a 1280 mode. But yeah, it was more self-discovery. I think at that point, BBSs and CompuServe and Delphi started getting us a community, not quite up to like we have now with the internet, but it was a little bit we could start asking, Steve Bjork, how do you do this type thing? He'd answer on Delphi or something like that.
I was on Delphi a lot, I remember. And And I remember my keyboard for the color computer it clacked. And so I was on late at night, and my roommate hated it because he was trying to sleep.
Yeah, I was lucky. My roommate at the time I started doing the heavy duty late night programming was exactly like me, except he was doing it on the PC. He originally had a CoCo, but he went to PC afterwards. So we were both up till 3 a.m. on a work day, typing away.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about transitioning from the CoCo to a PC was the fact that a lot of people did say that you'll never learn how to completely program the thing because it was so full of all kinds of code and stuff that it's hard to follow. So, and because I had thought maybe I would get into it with a faster, bigger machine that had this, hard drive, because I really never had a hard drive on my CoCo. Thought I would, but I never did. But there became so many different libraries of programs that you could usually, especially now, find anything you want to do just by searching it out, And I thought it was getting that way with the CoCo because there was so many programs, and different things to work on floppies, to, word processing, to, making artwork and fonts and things like that. And then when you get into the PC, it was like, it would blow your mind away. But I think that's what probably, gets younger people. There's so much, it's like flush with different things you can do. I mean, you just think of something and you can do it. But you can also do the same thing on the CoCo in a way. It may not be as fast, but if you think of it, you can do it. Isn't that like the weirdest thing? I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to compete with phones.
Yeah, phones are even the next step,
Yeah.
There's more of those out now than there is PCs, so.
Absolutely. And there's some amazing games on there. So it's hard to compete.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
We have one emulator that'll work on the phone?
There's one for Android, and you can also run XROR online.
Yeah.
Though, as Kieran has admitted, he's got to get the XOR online a bit more caught up to date to the actual XOR. It's fallen a bit behind.
And what do you guys feel about like VCC and some of these emulators and stuff? I mean, they've been updated to the point to where they're working pretty well now.
I wish I had one back in the day because the debugger, is.
Yeah, totally agree there.
Whereas on the old days, basically, run a crash and you got to go through the source code and kind of figure out where it crashed, whereas the debugger, right where it crashed, all the registers,
Then you need to reassemble it, take another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, no, 95 megahertz for the compile.
Yeah, you can overclock the.
That's why kids don't like it. They don't want to wait.
Yeah, well, why would you if you don't have to?
Really, yeah.
Yep. Like you were saying, just Phantasm, doubling the speed of an assemble was like a huge difference for you guys.
Yeah.
And that was still 20-25 minutes.
Yeah. For a big project, yeah. It was crazy. But it made such a difference. I mean, it made it so much more comfortable to program.
I think the biggest threat was when I even started to play with even basic, I'm turning off the computer and forgetting that oh, it's gone. Or someone else doing it to you if you left it on. And that was a real bummer, And even today, when I do artwork, I have to remember to save off where I am because if something happens or, the latest version is great to start with if you messed up,
It was that was a huge thing even through PC. It's like if you don't save and something crashes, then you're just done, which is why I love I love the cloud. I love working on Google Docs that automatically update. Doesn't matter what happens to my, the individual thing that I'm working on. It's like, it'll still be there. My latest version updates as I'm pressing the key. So yeah, that's made a huge difference for me. That and not having to worry about what is my current novel on. I can just take my iPad somewhere and just start working on it in a coffee shop because it's not on the iPad, it's on Google Docs.
It's almost like in your head, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't have any more questions myself. I've been kind of monitoring the chat the last little bit, and I think most stuff that we've been asked has been asked. So any final thoughts from the two of you?
I did want to say one of the things that happened when we released the Contras is that I made a bunch of these, and I still have some. And if people really want them, I have been selling these occasionally on eBay. For right now, it's for $50. If anybody wants an original copy, and I'll sign them. I'd love to have Doug sign them, but we're not in the same place. So I will sell them for $40 a piece if anybody wants to contact me.
Okay, and if Doug does end up making it to the CoCoFEST, like if we can,
you can
find
bring
out
it
for
there.
sure whether that he can sign them there if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that.
And I wanted to give a preview of what I'm going to be showing when I'm here next time. This is the cover for the book that I have coming up.
That's the final one in the series too, right?
That is the final. That's the finale of the series. So yeah, I'm really excited about this book. I left nothing on the table. It's if anybody of you have read my books, it's going to blow your mind. So I'm really looking forward to talking about that next time I come.
Yep, and the date on that, I don't have that actually handy at the specific moment, but I do have it.
27th should be at this point.
No,
I believe so.
I think it's February.
I know I've moved a few times because your book signings were getting pretty busy.
Yeah, I have it as February 3rd.
Okay, I still have January 27th. You want February 3rd work better for you then?
That's better for me too.
I know it was bouncing around a bit from the bookshops and stuff, but
yeah, then it's not on the same day as the Virtual CoCoFEST. So
actually, I'm okay either day, I think.
Okay, let's go for February 3rd then.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Let's do that. Yeah, that's what I have on my calendar. So I'm up for that.
Cool.
Did Boise make that book about the color computer? Was it Boise on there?
The history one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
I just wondered, did you two guys seen that book at all or read it or know about it?
Parts of it, I read it.
The parts where it talked about me, I read.
All right. Are we ready to
scan for your name?
For those wondering, that's the book there.
Yeah. I think I've seen bits and pieces of that.
So are we ready for commercial break?
Yeah, I just wanted to do a big thank you to Doug and Glen for coming on the show and talking about the history of Contras. I know it was a bit of a bear at the time, but I'm really glad you guys completed it because it's an awesome game and a lot of fun. And Glen will be on again in February 3rd. Doug, hopefully you make it out to the fest because if you get some Contras signed by Glen, it'd be kind of cool to have them signed by you too later on too. So that'd be awesome. And thanks again. You guys are welcome to stick around for the rest of the show if you want, or if you have real lives to get back to, you feel free to do that as well.
Well, thanks so much for having us. It's always great. I love chatting up everybody about the color computer and about everything else. So thanks for having me, and good to see you, Doug.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Had you guys ever met in person before, like face to face, sort of?
Evidently, we did. I don't remember it, but we were chatting about that last night. Yeah, we met at CoCoFEST or at Rainbow Fest 1 year when we were in development. So that was neat.
Cool.
Well, it can happen again.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to drag Glen with one of his book signings here and have a book signing table at CoCoFEST or something.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot actually. In March, it's full. It's like for like 3 months. It's just every weekend is a signing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds like you're busier than the previous books.
I didn't know how. I'll talk about it all on February 3rd, but I didn't know how to do them. how to do signings last year. A lot has happened in the last year to sort of up my game as far as a launch. So I'm really looking forward to this launch. It's going to be spectacular.
Cool. So there's a teaser, folks, for the interview on February 3rd. Okay, so thanks again for both of you. I think we'll go to a commercial break.
Thanks again.
Hey, Amy. Hey, Taylor. We're watching the CoCoNation show. Yeah, we are. Woo! You should too.
Hello everyone, it's your good buddy, your good pal Amigo, and joined by that dastardly The Brent from ARG Presents.
You're watching CoCoNation.
I feel like that should have been longer.
The CoCoNation show would like to thank the following patrons: Alex Gayer, Brendan Donahue, Brian Walsh, Brian Weasler, Karen Anscombe, Coconut Bob, Daddy Burrito, Derek Smithson, Diego BF109, Don Barber, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Wabke, Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Justin Larson, Ken Reichert, Kevin Holloway, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, R. Allen Murphy, Retro Tech Time, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Steve Batson, TJB Chris, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom S., and William Athing. Thank you so much, patrons.
Welcome to everybody's favorite segment, Who's New to Discord?
Silent Bob says, CoCo 2 owner, a few Tandy machines and TRS-80 machines. Was here before. Life got busy with the move and getting the house together. Finally things calmed down to enjoy the fun stuff again. Call me Silent Bob. And I agree to the rules and I solemnly swear I'm up to no good. Mike says, I'm Michael Z. I've been into CoCos from the mid-1980s with a MC10, then a CoCo 2, then a CoCo 3, and now I own all the CoCos, and look forward to every CoCoNation. Gooseyard says, Andy B. I got a 64K CoCo 2 when I was I think 11, had fun with it for years and then my school got some 286s and I messed around with those for several years. Now it's a delight to come back to the CoCo and fool around with OS 9. I think it's a lot more impressive to me today knowing how much it could do with modest hardware, and really happy to see people keeping things alive and vibrant. Adam D says, unfortunately, I have absolutely zero CoCos. That will be remedied this year. Mainly C64, Tandy 1000, NES and late era DOS, with random systems from time to time. I've been friends and acquaintances with a number of folks in the CoCoNation for some time. Buck Owens informed and invited me. Looking to learn about what I've been missing in the Tandy color computer range of computers. Floyd says, I'm Floyd R. I'm the creator of such games as Gem Quest, The Dungeon Depths, and several others. While I no longer own a CoCo, or any other retro machine, I have set up MAME on my Mac to emulate the CoCo. Recently, I was looking at the basic 09 manual and got a nostalgic bug to start coding in it again. Mainly to fix bugs and enhance the games I've already created. I'm very glad to be on this channel. The previous bios were edited for time. Thanks to Boysen, Glenside Computer Club, Paul Fiscarelli, Tandy Color Computer 3, and the CoCoNation patrons for boosting the server. Please consider joining Discord and visiting the welcome section to read these bios in full and see what the community has to offer. Just go to discord.thecoconation.com.
See you on Discord.
Welcome everybody to the CoCoNation Game On Challenge of the Week results video. This week we did things a little bit different. We played any Frogger game you wanted. That means that the scoring system is a big hot mess. So what I'm going to do is first show you how many people participated, how many scores they submitted, and then I'll go through each of the games and only give you the top score from each game. So starting off, we had a total of 19 players submitting 62 scores on 11 games. We had Jim Gerie submitted 1 score, Mr. Dave 6309 1 score, Brian Walsh 1 score, Kieran 1 score, Joshua 1 score, Nerf Herder 2 scores, Micro Hobbyist 2 scores, Ed Rhodes 2 scores, Mark B 3 scores, Henry III 3 scores, Sloopy Malibu 3 scores, Shenley 4 scores, Sabhead 4, Jim Gerie 4, Coconut Bob 4, Canadian Retro Things 5, Rich N 5, Buck Owens 8, and L Curtis Boyle 8. Now the games. We played The Frog with 12 players, and the winner was Brian Walsh with 12,800. Frogger had 13 players, and the winner was Buck Owens with 8,850. Rail Runner had 3 players, and the winner was L Curtis Boyle with 21,430. Jumping Joey had 9 players, and the winner was Coconut Bob with 17,720. Frog Trek had 9 players, and the winner was Buck Owens with 7,560. Mr. Dave wrote a Frogger text adventure for this. 2 people played it, and the winner was Mr. Dave 6309 with 24,000. Froggy had 7 players. The winner was Buck Owens with 36,200. Conveyor Belt had 2 players. Buck Owens won that one with 26. Horace Goes Skiing had 2 players, and Buck Owens won that one with 755. Croker had 2 players, and Buck Owens won that one with 1,040. Frog Jump had 1 player, and that player was L Curtis Boyle with a score of 2. Thanks everybody that played, and we'll see you again next week.
The CoCoNation salutes Buck Owens.
So, Ken, did you see Jim Gerie's comment in the chat?
I just noticed that I put Jim Gerie on there twice because he deserves it as our intern. And actually, just noticing that mistake, you know what? I'm not going back and fixing anything because I don't care, because this took me so long to put together. We are never doing this again.
I was talking about his latest comment. He added another one here about Frog Trek.
Oh, Frog Trek, there's no winners. A lot of people played Frog Trek, though. I'm surprised. Even though it was an absolutely horrible game. Maybe people just had to see how bad it really was.
Yep.
So a full list of the scores will be posted on the Discord channel. So you can see where you came in that.
Dimensional spreadsheet, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, we're definitely not doing that again. So, I know we're short on time, so we'll just quickly go over what was everybody's favorite Frogger game that participated this week. Anybody?
Myself personally, it would be a pretty close tie between the official Frogger, because it actually plays quite well. It has some of the music, etc. It's not the highest res visually presented. It's probably a little bit above average. And Jump and Joy. That would be my 2 best out of the lot. Graphically, I would say the Frog is still the most impressive visually. Unfortunately, the play is terrible and the sound isn't much better.
I personally really enjoyed Rail Runner. So that's my 2 cents. Anybody
Nick,
else?
you're the Frogger expert since you wrote a clone of it with Jumpin' Joy, and I'm going to guess Jumpin' Joy is your favorite. What would your second favorite be?
The other one you mentioned. What was it? Frogger itself.
The
Frogger
official
itself?
license.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a good version. But yeah, next time we decide to do something like this, Curtis warned me ahead of time how many versions of something there is on the color computer.
I think
Next, we're going to do Pac-Man like that.
Give him the old baseball sign. Yeah.
God, no.
20 of them, I'm sure. I was going to ask you, I didn't get a chance to try, but what the heck was Mr. Dave's text adventure version of Frogger? Like, how did you play that?
I have no idea. I just know him and Buck Owens were the only ones that played it.
Story problems.
It's what?
Story problems.
Story
It asks
problems.
a question.
Okay.
It asks a question. If one side is coming this direction at this speed and the other side is coming direction at this
Oh,
speed, which way do you
Jesus.
move?
Oh, like math.
8th grade
quizzing?
math again. Train A is doing 80 miles.
So worse
an hour,
yet, it's an
train B-
educational game on top
That
of it.
sounds so fun.
Well, it's kind of interesting that he just wrote it especially for this challenge.
Right? You said any Frogger. That's a Frogger.
It is. It's a Frogger clone. So
well,
technicality.
It's not a clone, but it features.
technically,
It's a
Technically
spiritual
it is.
clone.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see text adventure Frogger, that's for sure.
a clone is any version that's based on the original. And who said you have to have graphics?
I was wondering for our two guests here, Glenn and Doug here, did you guys play any of the Frogger clones when you were younger type thing? And did you have a favorite of the ones we had on the CoCo?
No, I didn't play on the computer.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't. I'm sure I played one or two of them in my day, but I do not remember them to a point where I have a favorite.
Oh, you just don't want to admit it's Frog Trek.
No, I think it's the text adventure. Honestly,
Yeah. You see a log ahead of you. Do you want to jump? Yes or no?
you know, it almost has a little piece of my heart being a text adventure, but it's a math problem. I mean, at least there could have been, you know, key in a lock or something. I don't know.
Right?
I love adventure games. That sounds horrible.
I like Frogger, but I don't play games much. But the problem is if you're not good at it and you're hearing the song over and over again because you're not good at it, you get sick of the song. So
Well, see, there's the best thing about Jumping Joey is you can turn the music off.
Plus, he has different music themes for the three different screens, too.
Yeah.
So
But you can still turn it off. After listening to it once, turn it off. That's
Well,
just
back
the
in
way
the day,
I
we
like
had
games.
a TV and you can turn it down. So
yeah. That was an interesting experiment trying to do like every clone of something. But yeah, there's a few CoCo games where we only have like one or two clones that would work with. But when you're starting to deal with the really popular stuff like Defenders and Pac-Mans and Moon Patrols and stuff, it's too much.
I don't think we realized there were that many Frogger or Frogger-ish programs out there.
I knew that as soon as he mentioned it. I was going, you're in for a world of hurt, buddy.
I think the next time it's going to be any text adventure. And that is the week that I'm away, and either Sloopy
You're going to
or
be in
Jim
Hawaii
has to-
sipping on Mai Tais, laughing hysterically. is
Yeah,
what you're gonna do.
either Sloopy or Jim is going to have to put all the scores together.
That means we get to play scripts it finally.
Yes, and Frogger
Forget
again.
that.
And
I'd like to
Frogger
see-
again. Yeah.
Frogger again, yeah.
I'd like to see you guys download a WeFax frame. That would be cool.
Yeah, it was an interesting experiment, but yeah, that's just too
Yeah,
much.
that's yeah. It'll be a little more reined in if we ever do anything like this again.
I think the last time we tried it was Joust, wasn't it? Where we were doing like Pegasus and
Yeah, but we did
Lancer.
one each week.
We did one at a time for 3 or 4
Yeah.
weeks straight, though. So that
and then
that made
voted
more
on our
sense.
favorite, which
Yeah.
is it. Although the one good thing about this is that you know, technically there were 65 different games played this week, or this last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that's like a lot. Everybody participated a lot.
And Buck Owens is still number one.
Oh yeah, well,
Yeah, him and Tasman usually.
Yeah.
I'm
I sneak
surprised
in
he
once in a
never.
while, but-
I'm surprised Buck never put in a score for Jumping Joey, because hasn't he broken that game?
He
Yep.
has.
Wouldn't Buck Owens be the one to test your game if you're making a game?
These days, yeah, he's one of the best testers you can get. Yeah.
Is he? I didn't know if he did it.
He will break your game for you.
He will
break it and send it back.
So the other game that we played this week was Super Pitfall, which is one of Steve Bjork's games. And
have you ever had us play a game that was tape?
Well, a lot of them were available both ways. So, I mean, how do you determine that?
Most of the games that are available on tape have been patched to work on discs. So,
but require it on tape.
I don't think there's unless it had mixed audio, like audio on, motor on type stuff. There's not really anything that would only run on cassette.
Which would that even work through emulators?
It does, but I mean, why do you want to wait? This is like using Phantasm versus using Edtasm. Why would you play something that takes 3 times longer to load on purpose?
Right.
We're going to have to put Tales of Suburbia on the Game On Challenge.
Tell you what, Ron, on the next one, we're going to have type-in games, and it'll be like 32K basic, and you're going to have to type the whole thing in to play it.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
And the game will be actually who can type it in the quickest without mistakes.
And we'll have no winners that entire week because nobody will get it bug-free.
How far do you get into the game before it
Except
crashes?
Nick. I'm still loading it from last week.
And the week after will be type in a machine language game.
Nick will be the only one that'll get it in bug free.
LDX.
That's right. No bugs.
Yeah, because he doesn't know what a bug is. Apparently, they have a different name or a different word for that in Australia. Because I'm sure he has bugs, but.
All right, so getting back to that, we are playing Super Pitfall as our second game this last week, and it's going for one more week. So, basically, it's a Pitfall style game that was available on the Color Computer 3 and on the NES. So,
and one other platform, I think the PC 6001 or something like that. There was one other one.
Okay.
Wasn't
I
there
just knew
one
about
on
the
the 2?
On the Color Computer 2, there's
Super Pitfall.
No,
not
Pitfall
Super
2 was on the
Pitfall 2 is available, which also Steve Bjork wrote or programmed.
It's a different game.
Yeah, it's based on the arcade game, Pitfall 2.
Actually, I think the Atari 2600 cartridge one was before the arcade one, if I remember.
Was it?
It was the original.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I
they
just
actually
remember
put special hardware in the cart for that one.
I just remember when I first played it, it was because that's one of the cartridges that will not work on the new Atari 2600 Plus.
Yeah. Yeah, they added extra hardware in that one. It's kind of like, the Predator and Robocop we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I think they've updated the firmware. It might now.
On the Pitfall 2, the extra hardware on the Atari 2600 cart is a sound chip so that it can play continuous background music.
And they didn't emulate that?
No. On the Atari 2600 Plus, what it does is it downloads the ROM into an emulator on board, and then you play it. And because it needs to access that extra chip on the cartridge, it won't work.
And they don't do that.
I heard that Steve Bjork said that there was only like 76 bytes on a 2600 usable memory.
128 bytes, I believe.
Yeah, 128 bytes of RAM.
Oh, okay.
One line of video at a time.
Yeah.
A real rocking machine.
So,
but they did some pretty amazing things with it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But this isn't the Atari show, so let's get back to the CoCo.
That's right.
Thank gosh.
Go back on topic.
Yeah, we had limited time, remember? So
okay, so that's the other game we're playing. So just so you know, and now we did. I'll just show some quick footage from.
Sounds like a game.
Thursday night. Basically, everybody was playing lots of frog games and Super Pitfall, which also had frogs in it. So
staying on
we should have added that to it then.
A lot of dead frogs.
It wasn't a Frogger game. It just contained frogs. So
now I did want to check something with you, Ken, because we were recommending for those that have 639s to get the Sockmaster Enhanced one because it plays quite a bit smoother and faster than the original one.
It does,
but it does have a forced, abnormally high number of men.
Yeah, which kind of is unfair because you had, I think it's 96 men you get or something like that. So.
Yeah, I could have sworn I had a copy before that only still had the 3 men, but was enhanced, but maybe I was remembering wrong.
Well, so unfortunately, I mean, I'm not a huge stickler for rules, so if that's the one you want to play, then
Well, what if you took the picture with your number of men showing? So after 3 men, you're done.
if that's you could. Well, because you also
You get
do
free
win
men,
the
though, sometimes,
free
so-
men quite easily in this game.
Oh,
So
yeah. Okay, never mind. I'm done.
I don't know if I get some time at the beginning of this next week here, maybe I'll see if I can figure out where that cheat patch is there and maybe see if I
Change
can
it.
upload a reverted back to 3-man version.
I mean, the original version is a little bit slow, but it's not that bad. I mean, I played a heck of a lot slower games on the CoCo than that.
Yeah, no, I played the original cartridge, right after I bought it when it came out quite a bit.
The NES version is at least 3 times faster.
I played the NES version, and I much prefer the CoCo version. Because there's a lot of things in the NES version that it's running at a speed that when you come onto screen, it insta-kills you. Which just, I hate games that insta-kill you, that you don't have time to react and things kill you. And that was a problem in the NES version that I had when I tried it out.
Sounds like a dilemma.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly faster and smoother, but it contains a lot of insta-kills, so...
Yeah, and the 609 optimized version, I think it's roughly just under twice as fast, so it'd be kind of a nice balance.
Yeah.
The gameplay's the same, it's just plays
like
better.
there's a lot of things in the NES, like when you're jumping over a cavern, you'll jump into the air, and then a bat will come out as the screen scrolls over. A bat will come out and kill you.
Hey Nick,
So-
how did I do?
Good.
I said dilemma.
Yeah, I was going to say add the word donut in there, but I thought
So, mate, that's what I was thinking. Done it.
that's right.
And here, this is
Thursday-
Frog Trek for those that don't recognize. This is Frog Trek that's also being shown on the screen here too,
Yeah,
which I'm
Frog
surprised
Trek is
because
the
one of the
sideways
worst
one.
clones. Everybody's playing it.
Yep. It actually was interesting because up until about Wednesday, it had like one person that had submitted a score for it, and then like 8 or 9 people submitted scores for it in the last couple of days. So everybody tried it at the end.
Yeah,
Was
I
that-
think just to experience the badness of it.
Yeah.
Was that after my comment on Discord that said this game sucks?
Oh no, we knew that way ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
Well, I
So
think
thought-
everybody was thinking that if Nick Marentes hates this game, it's got to be pretty good. Because
I know
he
he
did,
likes
after all,
Neutroid
make
though, so can you
Neutroid.
trust him?
He thought he made Neutroid, so if he thinks it sucks, then it's got to be a pretty good game.
I like Bryce's review of that game.
What were they smoking when they made this?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give the author a little bit of credit because this is one of the earliest Frogger clones. It was his first machine language game he ever tried. I think he
Hey.
had trouble trying to get the speed up, so he actually only scrolls like the first 3 lanes before and after the current frog position because he didn't have enough CPU time the way he wrote it to keep everything running at once.
You never said that about my Neutroid, my first program.
Yeah, but you took 40 years and you still couldn't get it right. So
No,
this guy did it in months, man.
I fixed up my mistakes.
Your bugs. Are you admitting you have bugs now?
Oh, no,
No,
they
there
were
was no
mistakes.
bugs.
Way different.
Mistakes and bugs are different things.
Anyway,
So-
what's the game for next week, Ken?
Well, that's our Thursday night Game On Challenge Live. It's in the Discord on the Game On channel. So come by, play some games with us, or just stay and talk, or join us in the audience. That's on Thursday nights, whatever your local time is for that. So for next week, we are playing Super Pitfall for one more week.
Every Pac-Man.
And this game.
Oh, this is it's by
planes
JR
and
Soft Stuff or
helicopters.
something, isn't it? It's something Bomber or something. Jeez, I can't remember.
Does anybody else recognize it other than Curtis?
Or Buried
Ken
something?
won. Curtis lost.
I'm gonna guess Buried Bucks. I'm just guessing.
Ooh,
As
that's
long as there's
very
only one
close.
version.
Where's the? Right, I guess Buried Bucks.
Buried Bucks.
Oh, I did remember it. Right on.
Yeah.
And apparently it's broken.
Broken by Dell.
And what is
So
box
the idea
design?
of this game is that you're a helicopter and you have to shoot down holes into the earth and pick up the little money things. And then there's a plane going over top of you that drops bombs to fill the holes in. Somehow their bombs fill the holes in and yours make the holes. So
Since when did video games have to make sense?
And what happens if you can't
look at
see the
Detroit.
red box? What about the orange box?
you can play it in any color you want. Any color is accepted.
Yeah. And in your case, Nick, you can do it in PAL and you can see the vertical white stripe boxes.
Yeah.
There you go. The stripy
The
box.
jail bar box. So that is going to be our game for the next 2 weeks. And enjoy. That's that for that.
Okay, next.
Okay, so do you want me to go through the announcements and stuff here first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
White or whites?
Okay, you guys are shaking VCF SoCal.
Aye.
Okay, so upcoming events. VCF Southern California, February 17th to 18th in Orange, California at the Hotel Fair Events Center Hotel. That is one that Wayne Campbell is going to try to make it to. I don't know too much more about it. I think it's making a return. It hadn't been around for a while, so kind of curious to see. I'm really curious to see what Wayne finds there. See how much of a CoCo representation we have there. Next after that is the Interim Computer Festival. This is one that was a VCF and kind of disappeared for a while. Now they're kind of resurrecting it back, but it's not got full VCF status again. Marco Rosen knows more about this one than I do. That's in Seattle, Washington at Interest Space on March 23rd and 24th. And I think Mark is still planning to make this one.
I'm planning on it, and they still don't have registration open. And it isn't the original people that did the VCF Pacific Northwest. It's just people, I guess, attended there. And so they're missing that event and they're trying to bring it back because there is a demand.
Yeah, I agree. Next one after that is, of course, the one that most of us are the most familiar with, which is CoCoFEST, the last one, the 32nd last one. That is going to be May 4th to 5th in Carroll Stream, same hotel as we had last year. I will mention, because I don't know, is Grant still on the call or did he leave?
Nope, I'm still here.
Okay, I might as well let you handle this because you have some announcements about tables, et cetera, for this one too. So.
Yep, just want to let everybody know that registration has opened up and tables are going extremely fast. We had 49 tables and I believe there's only 11 tables left. So if you were thinking about getting a table, you might want to book it now instead of later. So, and I think I'm meeting with the hotel here later this week. We're going to talk about maybe putting some tables in the hallway or into another room if possible. So I'll keep everybody up to date on that because I have never seen the tables go as fast as this has. So, I mean, 30 some odd tables gone in less than a week is just amazing. So, but,
yeah, I mean, you have what, 49 tables, I think, total?
Yep, 49 tables. And we only have 11 left. So I think.
Yeah, so basically the stuff in red here for those watching the show on video here, anything in red's already been booked and anything green is the only things left.
Yeah. Scroll up to show the X's. What's there? That's where you can be.
Well, the X's are the ones that are already gone. So
no, I mean, well,
the,
that's what I mean. That's the few blank ones scattered here and there. So if you want to be next to somebody.
Boy, nobody wants that 36 to 40 row, do they?
Handylist.com. Go check it out live.
Yep, handylist.com. Also, we have the menu for the dinner on Saturday night. It'll be barbecue brisket with pulled pork, corn, mac and cheese, baked beans, and a dessert with a salad. So that'll be $45 per person on that. So everybody should hopefully enjoy that as well. And then if you're wanting to do a presentation, just get in touch with me. Just send me an email or contact me directly on Discord, Grant Leedy, or CoCoFEST at glensideccc.com. We're probably going to have about room for about 5 to 6 presentations. So, and we're not going to do presentations on Sunday because people wanted to attend the booths and tables more than they do the seminars. So we're going to not do any seminars on Sunday because everybody's packing up and trying to get things finished and so forth like that.
Yeah, because some people fly out that same evening, so they're kind of shutting down a little bit early.
Exactly.
Now, before we go to the next,
go
ahead.
Are you wanting to do a music night again this year? That was something I was going to ask you. God forbid, help us all. But,
Definitely are. There's some special plans for this one too. So yes.
Okay. Yeah, let me know about that, and I'll get that on the schedule as well. So
The Grant Leakey song will make its premium. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, great.
Now, before I go on to the last couple of shows that are upcoming here, Mark, Virtual CoCoFEST, an update from you. I know you've posted onto Facebook now in various groups that is happening. So if you want to give some details for those that aren't on Facebook.
Yeah, I should have posted on the CoCo mailing list also, and I haven't. Let's see, I did a post on Atari Age. So did I post on Atari Age? Maybe I didn't. Anyway, basically, if you can't make it to the fest, Virtual Fest, basically the end of the month, 27th, 28th, got a lot of time slots available. Nobody's really contacted me directly yet. Just I've had some people note some interest, but nobody's actually said, yeah, I want to do it. And what times do I have? So Virtual CoCoFEST, basically, Virtual Fest. We'll do Dragon. We'll do potentially Luciano. We'll be doing something with the Brazilian clones. So looking forward to that. And anything CoCo, Dragon, Brazilian clone related, we want to hear about it. Especially if you're not going to be able to make it to an actual fest, either CoCoFEST or the Dragon meetup or VCF or whatever. This is your chance to basically do a presentation from your own home, business, or lair, if you're one of those types of mad scientists. Anyway.
Even the redheaded stepchild?
Even the redheaded stepchild.
Okay.
Oh, the Alice.
Yes, that one.
Because it's red.
Exactly.
For those of you who have been watching the show since its previous incarnation as well, you'll remember we did a Virtual Fest during COVID that was actually hugely successful. I think it's still the best viewed show we've ever done. And it was a 6-hour marathon of going through presentations that would have been at the fest had people been able to attend in person. It was a lot of fun. So,
and the year after that, we did the Dragon one, which was very long also and pretty well attended.
Yeah,
I think that was our longest show, was the Virtual CoCoFEST, wasn't it?
It was over 6 hours.
I
remember
believe
that.
it was over 6 hours. Yeah.
It was a monster.
But we had a lot of live viewers. We had a lot of people viewed afterwards, so it was definitely worth it. The nice thing about those types of shows is that you can, view it in bites after the fact. If you only have time for like an hour, you can watch the first presentation or two and then come back to it later and see the other ones. But it keeps people abreast of what's happening in the community, what's happening in the hardware and software development. For people that just can't make it either due to monetary reasons or distance or health or whatever else. So,
and that's in 3 weeks.
Yep.
Right.
And Mark, if people do want to send present or to book presentations that they want to give, and they're not on Facebook to respond to your posts, how should they get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, we do have an email. Basically, I'm using the CoCoTech one. So there's a CoCoTech at thecoconation.com that will get sent to me. If you want to book or ask any questions about that. Also, you can use that for CoCoTech questions too, if you have any. And then beyond that, on the CoCo Discord, you can get a hold of me there. I'm Marco, and one of those in orange, one of the few in orange. Other than that, Facebook, Messenger, regular email. I'm on the CoCo mailing list as well, but I don't follow it that closely. But I'll try to look out there too as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Continuing on with the other shows, we've got Boat Fest, the third annual Boat Fest, June 14th to 16th. This is at the Social Event Space in Hurricane, West Virginia. This is a broad retro show, mostly focused on gaming. There's some hardware upgrades and stuff being done, and gaming on both computers and consoles. So you see a wide variety of computers and consoles there, like Vectrix and CoCos and Amigas and Ataris and Model 100s and all kinds of things. So it's a lot of fun. Ken and I have been to that event before too, and I think we're both planning on going this year as well. So it's a lot of fun. Next up that is VCF Southwest. This is the one that's in the home of Tandy in the Davidson Gundy Alumni Center at the University of Texas in Dallas. And there is a group meet of a lot of the ex-Tandy employees that is planning on taking place this year as well. They actually had a whole panel last year. I don't know if they're doing that this year or not, but there is definitely a Tandy gathering being planned. I was hoping maybe I can make this one this year. It's on the exact same weekend as Boat Fest, but it just wouldn't quite work out. So I am planning on going next year, and hopefully I can meet Mark Siegel and some others in person. But we saw some of the videos that they recorded this one last year, including the Tandy panel. It was very interesting. They went through the whole history of the video techs and some of the early CoCo history a bit on that too. And then of course, the Model 1 and 3 and 4 and everything else too. So definitely worthwhile to go to. And a little promo here. This is the blog of Glen, and if you want to catch up on what he's doing on his books and stuff here, then you can definitely check this out. And this is mainly here because he's going to be our guest, now moved to February the 3rd. So come on in that show and ask him any questions about the book. He'll have hopefully some old CoCo memorabilia and stuff from the code writing days and some of the notes and stuff that he took back in the day. And it should be a real fun show. And this is actually the premiere of his final book in the series. It's a four book series, I believe.
Yeah, 4 books.
And have you got an audiobook version of this one out, or is it being worked on at this point?
So the manuscript is done. It's in the hands of my editor. As soon as I get it back, I will do the audiobook, because there is no better editing tool for me than reading it aloud into a microphone. I find lots of mistakes. So yes, I will be doing an audiobook.
Okay. So that's it for the upcoming show announcement. So I'll stop that share. And Mark, are you planning on doing the little intros, or should we cut those out just to save time?
Oh, no, we got to do the intros.
A video game from your stories?
Absolutely.
Do you ever
Take it away, Curtis?
I mean, there's.
Go ahead, Glenn. I'll let you finish your thought first.
Well, I mean, so there is a game at the beginning of in the first book. It's called The Game of War, and there's a game I designed, and I don't know, if that would translate directly, but there's a core of a game that I would love to play.
Cool.
Sorry.
You guys seeing setting up 4 on the screen? I just want to make sure I shared the right one.
Yep.
Because I got too darn many windows open. Okay, so the first one here, Jin Gerie, not quite as busy as the last 2 weeks were, but he's put out a couple things. So the first one here is a port of a game called Dungeon, originally by Brian Sawyer, done in 1979 on the Commodore PET. And this is a roguelike before rogue actually became a thing. I've fast forwarded a little bit here because it has a bit of time where it's setting up the dungeon, but actually is a pretty decent roguelike. It has the part where you can only see like a certain amount from your torch here. Like you'll see you're the X here and slash, you can see some of the walls. And he does this little YX animation for the legs, but you actually can wander through and it'll light up the map as you're going through it type thing, which for an MC10 game, that's pretty cool, I think. And the original on the PET as well. So that's a really cool one. Now this one, he actually wrote a full blog post on it too as well. So if you go to his Jin Gerie blogspot.com, I just type in Mania here, you can actually go through a bit of the history of the game. He also fixed some bugs. So apparently the original game, it looked like the original author on the PET was planning on a feature that he only partly implemented and then basically dropped. I don't know if he was running out of RAM or just decided it wasn't a good idea or whatever, but Jim decided to finish it off. So he goes in a bit of explanation of what the original routine was supposed to be doing, and then his fixes for actually fixing it up. And I'll let you read the blog post because we've been pressing time here. I won't go into details on it, but if you want to see that, you can pull up his blog spot, and you can get the direct link to it in the show notes that is on our CoCo Discord server. Another game that Jim did this week is a port of Othello, originally by Richard O. Duda. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but hopefully I am. This originally appeared in the October 1977 issue of Byte magazine, and it was a completely text-based one. So it has a bit of AI intelligence here for playing against the computer. And it's also a game that is also known as Reverse C. I think that was the other more popular name for the game itself. So I think that one actually might run in 4K too, though I'm not positive. Next up, because we're pressing time, I won't play the video like I was originally planning, but there's some reorganization going on at Amigos Retrogaming if you're a Patreon. So originally they had Patreons for each of the shows. So the CoCo show had a Patreon, the Amiga show has a Patreon, ARG Presents has a Patreon, the Spectrum show, the Atari ST show, etc. That was becoming a bit of a bear for just people having to pay like for all these different shows, especially if they liked all the computers. It was getting a bit expensive, and also I think there was a buyout of the people that actually do the I can't remember which one it was now. Anyway, one of the streaming services actually bought out something, and basically the reorganization has made things even more difficult. So they're just redoing it now, where basically they're going to be combining all the shows except for the Amiga show itself into one single Patreon. So you can chip in more money if you still want to contribute as much as you were before, but basically it'll cover for all the shows that are not the specific Amiga ones. So that'll cover, the CoCo show included. And this video here they put up is basically explaining the reasoning why they've done it, what exactly is changing, how to go about changing if you're already a Patreon supporter, how to change it to the new system, etc. Chronologically Gaming is back on after a Christmas break, and they had a couple of CoCo related games that they're currently doing September of '82. Now, Donkey King, as far as I can tell, actually didn't come out till it was first advertised in December '82 Rainbow, so it probably came out in November, but September is probably a little bit early. But he was kind of going ahead and during his Christmas break and trying things, to prepare for the shows coming up over the next few weeks. And Donkey King excited him enough, he decided to jump the gun a little bit, and he's kind of making the presumption that maybe it got released in September. And, technically maybe it did. I don't know how much the lead time was in Rainbow Magazine back in that time. But he did a review of Donkey King, and he was quite surprised at how good it is. And of course, this is a benchmark game on the CoCo. It's one of the first ones that I think most of us saw back in the day that actually we felt competitive as some of the other machines out in the day. This is a Chris Latham masterpiece. And of course, he later on went to do Sailor Man, which is actually technically an even better game, but not as popular as Donkey Kong. The original Popeye in the arcade was not as popular, so that didn't sell quite as well, and it's probably not as common. But if you want to see his review of Donkey Kong, and the chat room was quite liking it too. You can see people that are, C64 users and Spectrum users were going, holy cow, this is really good, actually. And then a little bit later in the week, he did another one. This is Flyby, and German Warfare. And this was a Chromaset game. So this is one of the ones we included on the Chromaset tape magazine that usually gave you like 8 to 10 programs every month for a very cheap price. And you subscribe to it just like a magazine. They'd have little tutorials, they'd have utilities, they'd have some games, some in BASIC, some in ML. And this is a little ML game that he played from one of those. So obviously it wouldn't rate as good as Donkey King. But for a magazine game, it actually wasn't too bad. Had a bit of variety to it. Next up, Brian Palmer, fellow Aussie to Nick, has been on a bit of a mission here to recapture a lot of the games that were published in the Australian CoCo magazines, like Australian Rainbow, Australian CoCo, etc. And he's typed in another one here called Terminator 2, which is written by Dennis Melican, which is a text-adventure game from Australian CoCo magazine, August of 1987. And it's a big enough text-adventure game, you actually had to do these pokes here to make the equivalent of a P-Clear 0, which I don't know why Tandy Microsoft didn't just put that properly in the ROM so it worked. Because it basically will take the entire 32K, and you don't even have enough room for a graphics page. I haven't had a chance to actually play this one myself, so I'm not sure what the game premise is. I'm assuming it's based on the movie of the same name. And I'm a huge fan of the Terminator movie, so I might actually have to give this one a try. But you can download that from the Facebook group now, and it should be on the Color Computer Archive possibly this weekend or next week. Next up, Matt Dar, who's been doing a game that we covered last week, where he's kind of going through the basic manuals, learning how to program. And he did a game, this is now his second update to it. So he's had a couple updates. The original one was very simple. It was just, block graphics, just green and black, and that was it. Now he's added some color. He's added some multiple levels, etc. I will play a little bit of a clip here because it's only 41 seconds. And it's basically a catch the shapes as they fall game. And dodge other shapes that you're not supposed to catch. And keyboard operatives, you can tell by the background sound. But he just started going through the basic manuals literally in the last few weeks here. So he's progressed quite a bit because now he's kind of straying away from the manual itself and the sample games they have and just, using what he's learned so far to write his own, which is, how all of us started. So. And then he started doing another one here that's also text-based, and this is based on the arcade game Lunar Rescue. Another one done in low-res graphics, but actually looks pretty decent. And since these are in low-res, I'm sure these could be ported to the MC-10 fairly easy, too. So anyway, as the same as the arcade game original, you launch from the ship above. You have to dodge the things that are moving back and forth and then land on the landing pads. If you miss, you die. And rescue astronauts, which is a little black dot that'll go running across the screen once you land and you rescue them. And the different levels have different colors and stuff. So he's actually expanding the color palette a little bit as you get to between the different levels. So he's been doing pretty good stuff for just, basically starting basic programming from scratch. And the last one here, we've covered his channel before. So this is a Spanish speaker, and the channel's called Expertech, and he's normally like an IT guy, but he has a CoCo 2, a real one, and he uses that to record some game videos, and he's only got a monochrome amber monitor. So everything he plays is in amber. And in this case here, he did another Chromaset game, which is called Flyby, which is kind of a Junior Space Invaders, I guess, type thing. So I don't know if you guys recognize it or not, but I turned closed captioning on so you can kind of understand what he's saying. So you got a variety of shapes to shoot down. They're coming in different directions. So that's a bit different Space Invaders, but you have the two shields that gradually get blown away as things progress, and you can hide under them and you shoot, etc. So nice little fun game. It's not a a standout or anything like that, but thought I'd give him a bit of coverage there. And that's it for the Game On News. If you want to play the other intro there, I'll get the...
When you want the latest in TRS-80, Tandy, Dragon, MC-10, and all of their hardware cousins, no matter what it takes, or where news breaks, from around the world, to your nation. The CoCoNation News with L Curtis Boyle.
Ooh, psychedelic.
Yeah, cool.
Eat. Okay, so the first one is from Rich N in the CoCo Discord channel. So he's actually working on his first machine language game, and he's going to do a clone of Spy Hunter, which is actually a game we never got on the CoCo as far as I know. And it is one of my favorite arcade ones. I did have a roommate who did start one. He was calling it Spy Chaser, and he got the title screen, and I think he got the very basics of the scrolling started, and then he got an IBM PC and never looked back. So that was the end of that one. But he's actually set up recently an actual homepage for where it actually has a lot of details. So you can see some screenshots here, kind of in the background. And then you got these clickable links, like, why did he pick to do Spy Hunter, versus any other arcade game? And he kind of goes through the history of that. He's got the game layout and coding section, and he's got a whole bunch of sub bits there, like how I was doing the sprites, I was doing the sound effects, the music, road courses, etc. So if you can click on any of these boxes, you can get the details of that particular subject here. And here we are using graph paper again. So he's kind of designed the game there, and then shows how it actually looks when it gets displayed, some of the sample machine language code, etc. And Glenn, you were asking before about still producing CoCo 1 and 2 games. This is one of them. That's currently under development. So he uploaded to the Discord itself. He uploaded some video of the game in action so far, and he put up 2 videos. One is actually using the RF out on a CoCo 2, so you're going to see a lot of noise and stuff on the screen, just like the old days. And then he did another one that's going through the CoCo DV, which actually does a super cleaned up signal. And that's the one, CoCo DV is the one by Alan of ACs, right? Is that correct?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. So you'll notice a definite increase in quality of the screen here, but I'll play a little bit of the game here from his RF out. So he's got some of the scrolling graphics. He's got the car you can drive back and forth. You can shoot. Put out the, I can't tell if that was the oil slick or the smoke cloud thing, but I can see oil slick. And the opponent card, of course, isn't doing much except just driving straight. But the scrolling's already working, and the player steering is working, and some of the weapons are working. So he's already a fair bit through it.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I was a huge fan of Spy Hunter in the arcade, and we never got one. That was one of the few games we didn't get a clone of, at least not that I'm aware of. And if you have a CoCo DV output, this is how much cleaner it looks. Now it loses some of the artifacting subtleties, but it still looks pretty darn good. And you can see the selection here on the bottom of the various weapons you can use from the original arcade, because the original arcade game had quite a few buttons on the steering yoke stick style thing. Really looking forward to that, though. But if you want to keep up on his progress, he's been posting in the general game channel on our Discord, and he's also now got that new blog posting up that I mentioned earlier, which you get the link from in our show notes on the Discord, and he's planning on updating that as he progresses. And there's a ton of stuff on there now. I haven't even had a chance to read it all myself yet.
So Is there anyone here who hasn't written one of these vertical scrolling kind of race games in BASIC just as a thing that you did back in the day? And don't you feel bad for yourself now?
Yes, and yes.
I had Desert Rider to play with.
Yeah, it's kind of a 3D. And that was a kind of a cross of bump and jump and pole position. Next up, TRS-80 Retro Programming is did a bit of a show on some different graphics techniques. Like he's been experimenting with get put and using P-copy to smooth out the animations and stuff here. So he was experimenting with just using draw, changing the color and actually animating stuff that way as opposed to using get put. I don't think the result personally looks quite as good, but it does, cut down on memory size because get put buffers, of course, you have to dim arrays to hold all the graphics data, whereas a draw string is actually a lot smaller. And in this case, he's using it for his game CoCo Ultimate, which is kind of an Ultima style game. So he wants more room for, the actual game itself versus just the graphics. It doesn't play too bad.
Then I ported it.
Like here, he's got a couple of different characters and he's got these little snakes coming by.
And there's one by one, and then the enemies move one by one, and you can either advance or attack or cast a spell. And
he's also been experimenting with changing different modes. Like he might use P mode 4, he might do some color stuff. Like he's experimenting with doing a lower res one like this to give him a bit more free memory for the game itself. You have to design the graphics a little bit between the shapes here because this is literally 1/4 of the res as the other one. But he's kind of going on that. He's almost finished his Tales of Suburbia game too. He's just tidying up the tape save routines and stuff. So I'll keep posting about that as he does more updates. George Jansen on his CoCo 3 assembly language series here has released lesson 5, which is getting into some more detail of the MMU in particular here and how to move code around between blocks. So far, he's been showing you how to do graphics and text screens on them. Now he's showing you can actually map code in and out type thing. He starts off with the high-res text stuff that he started on the left off the previous episode, and then gets more into it there. Once again, if you go to his channel on Discord, we have a channel dedicated to this series, and he actually uploads disk images with the actual source code. So if you don't want to type in all the stuff yourself, I personally believe if you do type it in, it'll sink into your brain better than if you just load it. But if you're pressed for time, etc., you can actually just load it and go through the program and then make your own modifications to figure out how stuff works. Micro hobbyist Frederick, he started his second episode, and this took him several takes to do. And he's actually, because of the frustration he had trying to make videos for this, he mentions during this video that he's going to be changing. He's doing them a little bit more in the future to help speed things up. So he's found himself editing video more than he was actually dedicating to actually doing the hardware project, which is kind of, not what his main goal is. So he's going to be changing it up a bit here, but he's going through here. He's doing some testing and a little bit of breadboarding to get a 6 through a 9 computer that he's basically building from scratch. And this will be a 3 megahertz, probably overclocked to 4 because the 6 through 9 tends to overclock to 4 and 5 fairly easily. And he kind of goes through the details of setting up the breadboard and stuff just for the testing. And here it's basically just testing the 6 through 9, making sure the signals are working. And here you can see a little picture of the breadboard itself, and he explains what each piece is doing and why. And this is all hardware stuff, so I don't understand any of it. So I'll let you guys explain it later. Right, Rick?
That's just too pretty. I can't comprehend. my breadboards have wires kind of nested and ratted, and these are all nice.
I just realized I probably have to send him a link to get back on the show again, so I'll have to do that later on. I totally forgot about him.
He's wondering, why can't I get on? My password is not working.
Next up, we have Retro Tech Repair. And this is a follow-up video because he was actually getting that yellow bar problem, which you can kind of see in the thumbnail on the left side. And normally this is that 555 timer chip that goes. But there's also some resistors and capacitors in that area here. And he did the capacitor change. And some people in the comments afterwards were saying it probably was the resistor because basically you can approach it from 2 different directions.
Right.
You bump one up and you bump the other one down, and they were thinking it's the other way around. So this is a video of him kind of exploring, was it maybe the resistor as opposed to the capacitor that replaced that probably would have fixed the actual problem versus adjusting for it. And I'll let you guys watch it to find out if that was what happened or not. But anyway, he did manage to fix the yellow bar thing. Next up, YouTube channel called I Didn't Buy These. A bit of a misnomer.
That's what you tell your wife.
Yeah, there you go.
I didn't buy that.
It just showed up in the doorstep from Amazon. I don't know why it got here.
I got you a couple skirts. I don't know what this is.
I did get dinner coupon. So he got a CoCo 3 here in pretty well mint condition. Like, it's not yellowed. It was still in the plastic inside the box. The box isn't even that badly damaged. You can see on the thumbnail here. Original manuals are there.
Pages are still in it.
Yeah, like it's in really, really good shape. And so he plugged it in and did. Nope. Now, he wasn't somebody that was really into the CoCo much, and this came as part of some other stuff he bought. So he's actually just made a video to show what it was like, and he's already sold it to somebody that actually had been trying to get a CoCo 3 for a while. I don't know if this other person watches the show, but I did send the guy a message that if you can pass on our show. Maybe he's in the chat now. I don't know. But he did sell it to somebody who has been trying to get a CoCo 3. And if, as we mentioned earlier in the show, CoCo 3 prices have gone absolutely through the roof on eBay. And this was a much better deal than your average eBay one. So hopefully the person that actually bought it will find us out from my sending a message to the seller, and hopefully will join us at some point. It'd be great to see another CoCo 3 owner back into the fold. Another follow-up one. So Primal-Bits on YouTube, he actually went through a video last time, I think it was a week ago or maybe 2 weeks ago, of a CoCo 1 that he's gotten back. And he just had the raw CoCo 1 with nothing else. So he went and bought a silver tape recorder, but it's not a Tandy one. It's Sanyo, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he decided to give it a test. So he wrote a quick little, basic program demo, just very simple, 10 print something, 20 print something, 30 go to 10 type thing, and test it out to make sure it's saving and stuff, and make sure he gets the right volume level adjustments, and got all that working. So he saved the program and he loaded it back in, and he's planning on doing some more follow-ups on this a little bit later, now that he's actually got storage for it. Now, he does want to keep this machine in almost the original condition he bought it. So it's a pretty decent quality CoCo 1 F board. Possibly, I think it's an F board, but it's only got 16K of RAM in it, and it only had a color basic in it. Now, he does want to upgrade to extended basic because he wants the graphics capability and stuff. But he does not plan on taking it past 16K because he wants to keep this one as more of a pristine first-gen CoCo, as most people would have bought it back in the day. I think he's planning on getting some other CoCos to get past that point, but he wants to keep one in his collection as a 16K. But he does want the extended basic. So,
editorial comment. Because the CoCo uses a cassette relay, almost any cassette will work with it. The on-off will work. For instance, the TI-99 4A had an electronic switching scheme for their cassette, and only some cassette players would work with it. But CoCo has a dumb relay. It'll work with anything that could use the switch on the side of a microphone. So, yeah.
Now, I have heard some people mention that some CoCo or some tape recorders actually don't quite get the signal clean enough to work. Is that?
Well, that could be electronically a problem, but there was just a basic flaw in some other small computers where they electronically switched the cassette, so it had to switch on a positive. We used a relay. It works.
Yeah.
We don't.
I mean, back in the day, I had several. I had CTR and the CCR. I think the 81 and the 70 something for the CTR one from Radio Shack. And then I ended up selling those, and then I needed to get a cassette for something. I had to restore some stuff off cassette that I'd kind of forgotten about before I sold them my cassette because I got my disk drive. And I ended up getting like a third party, not a Sanyo, but some generic tape recorder, and it worked fine. I remember even using my Ghetto Blaster on occasion.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. But I have heard people lately saying that some of the cassette recorders people are picking up these days do not work, or are super fussy on the volume, or
they're barely electronic.
And it could also be that the belts are wearing out in those tape players.
The old ones?
Yeah. If they're starting to slip, you'll start getting variable speed, and it won't exactly work properly. Yeah, that's entirely possible.
That's when you start turning it on its side and upside down.
That's when I buy a disk drive, or even better yet, a CoCo SDC, which Frank notified us in the chat earlier. He's back in stock. Although I will mention that to use a CoCo SDC, you have to have extended basic.
Yes.
As you do for disk drive in general.
Color Basic only looks for extended basic, and then extended basic looks for anything beyond that. So yeah, you have to be in line.
Now, this is an interesting one. Nick, I'm hoping you have some comments on this one, if you're still awake.
Yeah, I am.
So Tony Licari, I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but he's a person that lives in Australia, and he's in his late 60s, and he used to be very active in the Coco community and was part of the clubs and stuff. And he's still got a ton of his old Coco stuff. And to quote his thing on Facebook here, and this is going to be visual, so my apologies to the audio only listeners. But he said, I found another Coco peripheral in my collection, used it about 20 years ago or more. Forgot I had it till now. Anyway, here it is. If anybody has seen one like this, let me know. This has inputs and outputs and a program that comes with it that uses peaks and pokes, and it's called the CoCoNation. So I'll zoom this up a little bit here. So it's basically kind of an electronics hobbyist board, I guess.
It's two PIAs in a board.
Yeah.
So you can do things externally.
That'd be two PIAs, yeah.
So basically, you can program the port input and outputs and stuff here, and there's some wires and stuff you can plug into it. And it looks like it came with a kit with some like LEDs and stuff
We
here
got some
too.
transistor driven LEDs.
And it was by a company called Goldsoft out of Southport, Queensland. So is this something you ever heard about back in the day there, Nick?
Yeah, Goldsoft. They also the ones that took over the magazine and did the Coco magazine later on.
Okay. But did you ever have this board? Like you didn't do much hardware, but
no, I didn't have that. But yeah, it's just it's two PIAs.
So it's more meant as an experimenter's breadboard.
Yeah, it's an experimenter's board.
Coco robots.
Yeah, because I don't remember ever seeing these advertised here in North America.
Hey, you can drive a transistor driver. You can drive a motor.
You watch out; those Coco robots will take over the world.
Hey, I got to show you my Barbie Coco Jeep one of these days.
Now, I'm trying to remember from what little bit of hardware I know, the PIAs have an A and a B, or a 1 and a 2. It's like port things.
8 out, 8 in.
And you can see a port 1A, port 1B, port 2A, port 2B. So that's your two 8-bit things. What is port 3 then? That's on the top of the card.
I'm going to guess that's the rest of the chip selects that they got off of their 138. So you could have put 6 more PIAs in by daisy chaining.
Yeah, because if I'm reading it, it says 5 volt, 0 volt for the first 2 pins, and then 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,
yeah,
1.
Those are the unused
select
6
lines.
bits. Of
Those are the smoking ports.
Because you have a byte. They've used 2 bits, and there's the other 6. So presumably they would have some kind of extension that carried on from here.
Okay.
Well, here in the States, we just had to roll our own.
Right.
Anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting. It's a piece of hardware that I'd never heard of because it never got sold up here. So, and it looks like it's literally using a disc thing, but they literally cut it.
Yeah, they bought injection molded disc controller. So that was a serious company, wasn't it? It wasn't just a couple of guys in their bedroom.
It was probably a Scriptset cartridge before.
No, it's
a long
the
disc
Scriptset
controller.
cartridge would be about that size of the cut part there.
Yeah, it's a long disc controller. If you flip it earlier, it showed the bottom, and
that's right.
They paid money for that case.
I wonder if that time could you order a spare case from like National Parts or something?
I do believe you could.
Yeah, you should be able to.
That would make sense. Nice bandsaw, and you're done.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny is I made stuff like that for the Apple II. I have a bunch of them. There was a company called John Bell Engineering that has the MOS equivalents of 6522s, 2 of them on a card, and it's got some pin headers, and so you can wire stuff up.
Okay.
And so,
a popular multi-platform one, including the Coco, was A-Bus.
Yes.
But they had a ton of extra cards and a kind of their own multi-pack slot interface to hold all these cards because they had dozens of them from digital, analog, digital clock timers, motor controllers, all kinds of stuff in there.
it was the whole system, but but it's still, these type of things are great because you can hook them up to a transistor, drive a relay. You can switch stuff on and off. You can automate your house without using an X10 system. So all kinds of things.
I remember in my case, I could solder hair to it.
Well, you don't need one of those for that, do you?
No, you screwed it off.
No, it's just the expensive way for me to do it.
The expression pinhead came from this kind of device?
No. This next one here, this is a rather interesting one. We posted about it on Facebook. I got the YouTube video here. Now, I won't play the whole thing because it's 5.5 minutes long, but I'll play a little bit of it. And basically, Keith Christensen had saved a videotape of some little graphic demos in BASIC that he wrote. Kind of psychedelic, but has a bunch of different patterns and stuff here. It actually kind of makes a neat screensaver. And this was for the CoCo 1 and 2. So it's got some artifacting graphics. But it's kind of just, you know, interesting to see some of the patterns it came up with here, you know, just with some basic programming. I probably should turn the volume down.
So does he actually have the software for it, or is it just a video of it?
I didn't see the software for it, but I haven't checked his post in a while to see if he added that. This was just the video link. But he's like, in this case, he drew some stuff in P mode 4, and then he goes and starts switching to P mode 0 at different pages, and it starts, you know, changing the resolution and flipping around. So it does some very fast animations for basic that just look kind of cool.
Some of
They're
these,
not practical.
Some of these effects are VHS.
Only the side changing a little bit. Like this amount of colors here is actually kind of interesting. So he had some pretty good artifacting going on there. Of course, for Nick, it'd just be a bunch of striped lines.
So how do you know if some of this was a bug that he that he included?
Most of it
Not a
was
bug, it's a feature.
Switching P modes and stuff. It's all a bug. It looks cool.
That's a feature.
But still, it was pretty interesting to see. Like he did a bunch of different patterns. Like a lot of these demos existed. A lot of people did these. TRS-80 Microcomputer News magazine of itself had a few of these too. But most of the time, it was doing some fairly predictable things like a bouncing box or something, and it just did the same thing. He has a whole bunch of little things here that are done just to, you know, give you some variety, so you can kind of just run in the background as a screensaver or something.
Digital
Or to
art.
drive an epileptic nuts, one of the two.
Right.
Anyway, if you want to check out the whole 5.5 minutes, you can. I don't know if he's found the source for it or not, though. That's a good question.
It's pretty good.
Next up, Thomas Cherryholmes, of course, has been porting FujiNet to the CoCo and DriveWire, and he's decided to take a bit of a break on the hardcore underneath pinings of it, of talking over the network, et cetera. And this time he was actually working on using P mode 3 graphics to do some of the apps that you can run through FujiNet, in this case, the weather app. And he's kind of got it broken. He's even got some graphics for the clouds, and it's actually pulling this live from, you know, the net of when he took the screenshot on December 31st on New Year's Eve, you know, the temperature and the wind speeds and everything else. And this is the kind of stuff you'll be able to do on FujiNet, where you can pull stuff live off the web. And I don't know, it's looking pretty good. What do you guys think?
I did that in the 80s, late 80s with my CoCo.
Yeah, WeFax.
Yeah, but you had BBS
before
and
that.
stuff. Now you don't. You've got to interface somehow.
And this is
Thing
something
here
like
is that
what?
I was going to say that this is piggybacking on FujiNet. So this basic weather service stuff and the International Space Station tracking, that's been in place for a year or two.
Yep.
All
This is
you
just
do
the CoCo implementation. of
Right,
it.
but yeah, get to it from your CoCo. Right.
Yeah, exactly. All the rest of the stuff's already in place. So
Yeah. Now, I will mention we do have a weather app ready in Nitrous 9 if you have DriveWire that Todd Wallace wrote that will go and grab the stuff and does CoCo 3 graphics modes doing this kind of thing as well, too. So we do have some of this already and have had it for a year or two. It's already in the previous version of EOU. But it's good seeing it, you know, coming through FujiNet. And FujiNet is a cross-platform thing. So the eventual goal, hopefully, is that we can start writing some games that are, you know, are cooperative with, you know, other platforms like Atari 8-bits or Apple IIs or whatever else, and start playing some head-to-head games. And I don't know which platform Buck Owens is going to pick, because he has them all and likes them all. So
Did you
he'll be
guys
torn.
I used to live in Denton, Texas. I wonder if that's the Denton they're talking about here.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Probably. That's about right. Cool. Hometown. Or one of
yeah,
them.
actually, Thomas Cherryholmes lives in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area.
Okay, so Denton's a little north of there. Yeah. that makes
Yeah,
sense.
he's probably on the north side then. So
Did you ever hear of a place to telnet to called Star TTY? It would give you the local weather and news and sports, and you know, it was all in text, you know, with dividers in text, you know, in different sections on your screen. I've posted it on Ron's Garage in the past, and it was a great place to just, you know, have it run, and you know, the weather would change. It'd be a feed. They're no longer in business anymore. I don't know if it wasn't a pay thing. It was free.
Yeah, I remember CompuServe had something like that, but you definitely paid for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A lot.
I remember all the free stuff. I used to log into OmniFest here in Wisconsin. It was just a free, the internet should belong to everyone. And they just dialed in and there it was. I miss those days.
Yeah, I did some freenet stuff that had some of that stuff I could pull in using the VT100 compatible browser links.
Well, I
could
can
run
tell
it.
you, there was nothing like having something like that happen because it was like what the big boys were doing with their PCs, you know, but on a smaller scale, and you were, you know, happy to have it at home, and you'd show somebody would come in and you go, take a look at this, and they're going, you getting that from the internet? Yeah, or not internet, but from, you know, online.
Yeah,
we didn't. I don't think there was internet when we had stuff like that. It was just
Oh, the internet, the
you.
underpinning of the internet was been around since ARPANET, which is way,
Yeah.
way back.
Okay, well,
But it was
let's
the
pull
World
up.
Wide Web, which is I think more what you're thinking of. No, that was
Okay, so
early
Flag Day, which is when the internet switched to TCP, was January 1, 1983.
Okay.
So we are now 41 years after the start of the actual internet that we could access with hardware that civilians owned.
Yeah.
When
Now,
you
on the
went
other end, I was using Gopher before that, and you could get onto weather sites and stuff like that
Yeah.
too. So there was protocols on the internet. Semantics on the words, I guess. What people think is internet now is not what it was known to back then, but you had limited options for this kind of stuff. Next up, Alan Huffman has posted part 4 of his entry of the Logiker 2023 Vintage Computing Christmas Challenge, which is to create this pattern. And it's actually a few extra lines past that in as small of a basic program as humanly possible on a variety of different 8-bit hardware. And he got some help by Rick Adams here in going through and figuring out some ways to compress it down. And I think this is the one version of the diamond shape. And then Rick did one with that version of basic that he has that makes it, you can use like structured basic and generate your code in a structured basic, and then it exports it automatically to extended color basic, so you can actually run it on a real CoCo. But it makes it look a lot more, you know, modern and pretty printed, etc.
I could only do it in 63K.
So, all right, that's the entire program now. So that's a fair bit smaller than the ones that Alan had shown in his previous, which, you know, I think when he started was like 2 to 3 times this size. I'm not sure how that's comparing with all the other entries that are be coming in for this challenge, but we'll have to see what the final result is. And then he did Alan did another quick one here, extended color basic put from data. This is a rather interesting thing. Normally when you're doing get put buffers in extended basic, you would basically draw something on the screen using the other graphics commands. You would get the block, and then you can start putting it elsewhere. What he does here is he's using the var pointer function to actually figure out where the string is stored, or the array is stored in Basic's memory pool. And then he pokes directly into it. So you can actually create the shapes and the get put buffers directly with pokes, or say read them off a disk file and poke them right into the thing, as opposed to actually using graphics itself to create it in the first place. So rather interesting. I don't know if there's too much practicality of this, unless maybe you got to modify a shape in the middle without having to redraw it, piece out a couple of pixels on it, and then you'll get it again, then put it somewhere else. Like you might be able to directly manipulate a shape while it's running across the screen, for example, adding, say, a rotating light of a UFO or something on it by just modifying the get put buffer each time you put it, as opposed to having to create a whole bunch of them, taking more memory and then, you know, animating through the different ones. So it does have some practicality. I'm not sure how fast poking would be into this. So you probably could only do it for some fairly minor mods before it slows down too much. But it's a rather interesting way of doing things. And he's mentioned to me too, because he had a blog post, another blog post out earlier for a CoCo related thing, which it then got pulled, and he found out there was a bug in his WordPress thing. It was releasing stuff because he has a scheduled release for a lot of his blogs, and he's got blogs planned for quite a while in the future now, and some of them are already written. So there's some more stuff coming out, CoCo related, etc., too, that you'll be seeing in the next couple of weeks. But that one got released briefly too early, and then he yanked it back down. So look forward to some more stuff coming from Alan. Now, this is kind of a competitor to Frederick's. Of course, Frederick's is one we mentioned earlier. He's doing his 639 based system from scratch. This is another 639 based system, basically from scratch, by Dave Collins, and this is on Hackaday that he originally posted it. And he's on revision 3, so he's actually got a board ordered in. I think he's supposed to be getting them in from PCBWay this week, this 3rd revision, and this is running a 639 and some other hardware. There's a whole description here. I didn't get a chance to go through it too much. Here's a Rev 2 hand-wired board prototype that he did earlier. This is the new Rev 3 board that he's got on order. And yeah, so there's a couple of 639, build yourself from scratch machines on the go here. His got a bit of a different hardware spec. This seems to be basically more for the 64K RAM style, with 16K banks that you can swap in versus, say, the 32 that Sam did. And goes into quite a bit of detail here, but this is an open source project from what I can tell. So basically you can find out everything you want to know about the project there, and you hardware guys can probably understand a lot more of this than I can. But yeah, it's kind of interesting that, from being not one of the best popular machines, the 679 was not the most popular chip. Back in the day, it was used for the Vectrex, some arcade games, the Thompsons, the Fujitsus, and the CoCo and the Dragon, basically. And now all of a sudden there's like multiple 639 independently created, CPU-based machines that are just coming out from hobbyists. So I think people are discovering the power of the 609 chip. And it's kind of interesting to see where these things go, what they choose for graphics and text, and are they going to do serial port terminals, or what exactly they're doing with it. So you got Frederick's, which is a bit further behind this one, and then this one as well. So you hardware types that like building your own machines here, I definitely would keep checking these blogs here and see how they're doing. And this is another interesting one too. This is going over to the MC10. So Ruben Aparicio, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. My apologies if I'm not. I'll just read the quote and then we can kind of go through the picture here. Similar to what I did to the Alice 4K with the mere ROM swap for the US MC10 one, allowing using the QWERTY keyboard layout, because of course the Alice was French and used the what is it called? The
Azerty.
The what?
Azerty, AZRTY.
Yeah. Right, Azerty, right. Basically, he internationalized the keyboard of my Alice 32 by patching the original ROM and installing a socket for an EEPROM replacement. I have patches for original and for 2.05 system ROMs, hacked with the monitor program in ROM, which actually came on the ROM with it on the Alice 32, alongside the assembler. And he said, if anybody's interested, please PM me. So if you want to create an Azerty or a QWERTY version of the Alice 32, you can. And then he's got some pictures of the modification he did to actually get the ROM replaced, etc. here too. So, and he's got a QWERTY keyboard there. And apparently he's got a few of these machines, because you can see a few red Alice's here. So I just thought it was interesting that there's active, hackers for the French machines still doing hardware. We've seen a fair bit of software development from like Jin Gerie and Darren Ottery and a few others here too. And of course the CoCo VGA from Brendan, if they can get that back in stock now that the chips are finally coming back out again. But there's still hacking going on over in France too. Next up, I think John Whitworth, was he in the chat earlier, Mark? Do you know? I know Julian was, but I can't remember if I saw John.
I've seen Julian, I haven't seen John yet.
Okay. So John put up a 3.5-minute video here, an update to his Super Bob board that he posted in the Dragon group on Facebook. How are we doing on time, Mark Bosley?
Yeah, all right. About half an hour.
Okay, so I can play this. It's three and a half minutes. So I wouldn't even be able to explain all this stuff anyway, so I'll let him explain it.
I finally did a bit more work on Super Bob, which I'm sure some of you remember was a project I was looking at, crikey, end of 2022 now, maybe into the beginning of 2023. It was this super breakout board. It's been sitting on my desk for ages, actually. I had a bit of a problem with, I wanted to try and get it to work with a SPO 256, and I'd done a stupid little mistake on the analog part of the circuitry, which was stopping it working properly. And also, I think I've got a minor foible with the way that I've got the ROM wired, in that I need to hold the chip enable and output enable high via pull-up resistors rather than just letting the CPLD do it, because that just crashes the computer to start with. So I've got a bit of work to do on that part. Because I can't get the ROM to work, I've had to just address it via direct commands from the Dragon. And also I haven't quite worked out exactly how to get the ALD response to go back through the CPLD to tell the machine code routine that the speech ROM has finished speaking. But what I have done is some sloppy basic code which does indeed prove it's working. So I thought I would just share it with you, just to let you know progress of Dragon Plus projects. Here we go. This is how dodgy the code is. It just runs through the phonemes and several times so you get a good idea and hear them properly. Otherwise they're a garbled mess. So here we go.
Let's fast forward. Sounds like HAL 9000 when it's not feeling well.
And just to recap, the circuit that's on the board at the moment is, with the exception of the fact that it's not using the PIA, it's using the CPLD instead. It's a recreation of the JCB Microsystems speech synthesis cartridge for the Dragon. Hopefully, well, I don't know, it may not work with the CoCo at all. I don't know whether it would, whether the ROM would work. I've got to get it working on the Dragon first to see if it will work on the CoCo, but well, we'll see. Anyway, that's where I'm up to for now on this one.
So anyway, it was kind of like their equivalent of a speech sound pack without the sound part.
He sounds like Simon.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, John Wyeth, of course, is the guy in charge of Dragon Plus Electronics, which has done a lot of hardware upgrades of like the Super Sprite board, etc. too. So it looks like he's actually working on recreating a lot of the old Dragon hardware from back in the day. And I'd like him. I don't know how compatible this would be with the CoCo, depending on where it's mapped, I guess.
So in the future, he's going to have some software that talks.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of this is a speech card.
Mm-hmm.
And I think using a similar chip to the speech sound pack because it sounded about the same.
I think it's the same, yeah.
Next up, is 6C still in the chat? I think he still is. So my last news story is about his SAM ×4. Now, we've covered this a couple times. It's basically to replicate the SAM chip. And then Pedro Pena actually, took it and redesigned it to be a bit smaller and then helped Karen going back and forth between the two of them to detect or to work properly with different RAM size settings. I think the original version that Karen did not say, for example, work with 4K RAM chips because the Dragon never had a 4K version. So how would he know how to get that tested, right? And Pedro actually helped with testing here. So this is the actual project page of Karen's himself. And he talks about the different, stuff that's been fixed up and the fact that Pedro helped him, get things working properly for some of the other systems that he couldn't test himself. He's also built the board shrink in, so it's a bit smaller. Now he's actually done a 1.2 and a 1.21. Now 1.21 was just basically fixing a missing template file was required for the build. But if I read the notes for version 1.2 here, it says moved PCB files into subdirectory. So some of this is organizational, included Pedro's PCB shrink in the main distribution. CPLD source now configurable through generics. Build system supports multiple variants. And I thought, what does that mean? And he says, also includes extra variants you can build, quote, for fun, quote, that sacrifice some RAM size functions for extra video offset registers. And that sounded intriguing. So I asked him, what exactly does that mean? And he actually sent me a message on Discord last night, and I'll just quote him here. The additions are more experimental and may not stay in because right now they're replacing some of the the more rare RAM sizes that not too many machines use these days. He said, but for the curious, these are the current additions. CPLD, add additional variants with scrolling registers. So FF3A does a clear X offset register, 5-bit. FF3B does a clear video base, F register now 11-bit. FF3C is a left shift 0 into X off. FF3D is a left shift 1 into X off. FF3E is left shift 0 into F. FF3F is left shift 1 into F. X off added to lower VRAM address bits. And I didn't understand most of that, so I asked him what that exactly means. He said, basically, you can configure video base address to be any multiple of 32. Now, the current base address on the regular SAM, I think you can only do in 512-byte increments, if I remember correctly. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's right.
He's got it narrowed down to basically a single scan line or a single text line. And then an X offset is added to the lowest 5 bits of the video address, whatever it's calculated to be. So I think that allows sort of offsetting like a horizontal scroll register on the CoCo 1 or 2 is kind of the equivalent of it. And 60's now posting in the chat here, so I'll just see if I got that even close to being right. Oh no, he's still answering stuff from 8-bits in the basement, so not related to that yet. But that sounds pretty intriguing. I mean, if it fits on the CPLD and he can, keep the RAM compatibility options for some of the older machines in case anybody wants to replace it for that, or maybe request one that has this special thing, you can do some pretty interesting stuff if you have the control over the vertical offset of the screen at 32-byte intervals instead of 512. That means you could literally scroll a text screen one line at a time. A SemiGraphics 24 could be one scan line at a time, literally, you could control with the SAM. And it sounds like there's some horizontal there too. So you actually do some hardware scrolling in both directions, if I'm understanding that correctly. And he's just typing in now in the Discord chat or in the live chat. It's 11 bits of base address, then 5 bits added to the lowest 5 bits wrapping around. Okay, so it sounds like horizontal 5 bits would be 32. Yeah, so you basically can offset 1 byte increments horizontally and it does a wraparound. So your screen would wrap around horizontally, or you can offset the vertical to anywhere in your 64K memory on a 32-byte boundary, which would basically be a scan line or a text line. So that would allow you to do some pretty cool games, etc., with smooth scrolling and stuff without having the CPU have to literally copy everything every time. You can just do a sliding 2-screen window and just pop it between, populating the lines as you go, as opposed to all once. And he says, yes, hardware scrolling was the point, but of course it's not standard. I hope we can keep that in there because that actually opens some possibilities. And that SAM does work on both CoCo 1.2s and on Dragons. So that would be pretty interesting to see what people could do with that. Pretty cool for a project that was only meant originally to replace the original SAM in case your SAM blew, because of course it's hard to get those chips now, but now it's an enhanced SAM.
Feature creep.
Nothing wrong with feature creep.
Is that the last news item?
Yeah, I was blistering through because I want to make sure Mark had enough time to get.
If we've got time, I can do one little news thing about my.
Mark, how are we doing for time? Because you're the one.
Yeah,
who knows.
okay. Go ahead.
Hey, shoot, go Nick.
All right, well, a real quick one. I thought I'm just going to be talking about that MP3 thing. A bit of history quickly. Back when I was doing my game Gunstar, after Gunstar, I started doing a bit of a hardware add-on. It was going to be a super game cartridge for the CoCo, and the cartridge was going to have an MP3 module player, an Orchestra 90, as well as some flash RAM, whatever you want to call it. And I was going to therefore put Gunstar in ROM, and it would also use the MP3 to play background music while the game was playing, as well as having stereo sound effects using the Orc 90. Now, I did the design, and I got Jim to CAD together a circuit board, and he made me a prototype. But that was back then. COVID happened, chip shortages, and basically the project got canned. And I left it. I've done other games, and just recently, of course, I've been talking with Bruce, who's doing a project with using the same MP3 module, but his design is just going to plug into the serial port and allows him to do MP3 audio. So I was thinking, well, maybe I can revitalize my original idea of having Gunstar playing a background soundtrack. And I started looking into it, and I'm thinking, well, if he does that, then maybe I'll just go back and modify the code, because I did it all. It was all working, and I do have the prototype, and it does operate with the MP3. And I thought, well, maybe when Bruce gets his done, I can also modify my game to use it as well. But in the meantime, I found I still had all the files and all the music and everything. And last night I just did a mock-up video of Gunstar, the way it would work with the MP3, and I just thought I'd just play a bit of that version of Gunstar with the MP3 player, as well as all the sound effects, just to see try to get myself interested and excited about going back and revitalizing that project. So if I can just play the video, I'll just play bits of it. I won't play the entire game, but just so that people get an idea of what a game on a CoCo 3 with a background MP3 music track would sound and look like. So if you want to, I'll just try share my video.
Don't forget to share sound too.
Well, I think it'll do that automatically. So we'll see.
No, you have to click the checkbox.
Okay, I will do that. Shit, except I didn't. Hang on, I'll just. I clicked and I assumed something's going to pop up and ask me, but it
No,
didn't.
it's a little checkbox in the lower left of the screen.
I know, I just saw it then. And now I will do it when I find my damn video. Oh.
This is a professional programmer, folks.
That's right. I hate
I'm sorry, our time has ended.
Well, yeah. Well, what I was thinking, until I find it again, do you want to jump to Bob and show his CoCo 3? Because that looks interesting. And if we have time, we can go back to this. Once I find the files are just deleted. So I didn't delete it. I closed it. Now I've got to reopen.
Is that a bug?
No, that's
it's a bug in his gray matter, I think, is what
that's called stupidity. So I go to Bob, and when we're done, Bob, if we have time, I'll then play the video.
Okay. Just before we do that, though, before you switch the screen here, I just wanted to mention there's a comment from Dave 609, Mr. Dave, in the chat directly to Doug Masten. He said, Doug, that was epic work on Contras. I don't know if Doug's actually at his computer at the moment there, but hopefully you heard that. Okay, you can show Bob now.
Surprise, Bob.
Well, yeah, surprise. Here I am. Mic working?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And we see your shared screen with Extended Color Basic 2.0.
Yeah.
Like
So
Bob's working too.
see what I got here. Basically, what I'm doing right now, I've been just kind of cleaning some things up inside my boxes, but I got these replacement buttons for some of my joysticks.
There you go.
And what I'm about to do here is just write a little basic, sort of like a benchmark. I'm going to write a basic program that counts the button presses, and then I'm going to press the button 100 times, and then I'm going to see how many times basic counted. And then I'm going to replace the button and do it again and see if I made a difference.
I'm trying to remember how fast basic processes button hits. I think it's tied to VSync, so it would never be more than 60 per second.
Still faster than you're going to push it.
Yeah, faster than my fat thumb. The reason I'm doing this is because I literally, especially with games like Popstar, you know, I'll be hitting the fire button and nothing's coming out.
Right. Is it?
Yeah, I've got one joystick that's acting up like that too.
So, yeah.
I blame Nick's game
yeah.
on it, of course, but it's technically the joystick.
So if you have one of these deluxe sticks that's doing that, these buttons are available. They're a little pricey on DigiKey and Mauser. They're like $5 a piece, but I got a bag of 6 off of Amazon for, I think it was about a buck or $2 a piece total.
Go ahead and put the part numbers up on Discord there.
Right. And it seems to be true that any switch that sort of looks like that is that switch. There don't seem to be many alternatives that are mistaken for it.
There are some that are push on, push off.
Right,
and then
right. You have to look for
some,
that, but
right. There's also some that are normally closed.
But as far as
So-
basic form factor, that's
But yeah, I think it's called the 1400 series, and then there's a 1413, a 1412, based on
right,
which.
every number you can think of.
Yeah,
right?
you can find all that in the data sheet. I'll pull that information and throw it into the maybe in the hardware or the general channel.
Click on or click off should be called latching, whereas while these are momentary.
Right. The
Right.
point though is there aren't a whole lot of switches that are half a millimeter different or slightly rectangular or
Yeah, if they
that's
look
a very
like that
common
shape,
footprint.
they're pretty. Yeah, it's a common push button.
Okay, cool.
But
All right,
and
Nick,
then
you
I
ready?
guess.
I'm ready, yeah, but I think Bob's still going.
Well, I got one more thing. Since we're going back to Nick, I'm just going to do my quick segue here.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
What serial number is that? It looks like J09. You must have went through a lot of units to get that far into the alphabet.
It's the perception of success.
Right.
I think he said BS, I think is what he was implying.
One of these
Is that
days
why
I'll be
everybody
hooking
starts
that
serial
up.
numbers with a million?
Right.
All right, go ahead,
Right.
Nick.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just going back, I'm ready. All I have to do now is press one button. So just to explain again, this is my Gunstar version that was designed for the MP3 cartridge, and this is like a mock-up that I've set up. Just anyway, to give everyone an idea of what it was going to look like. So I'll just play it now.
Okay, so yeah, there you go.
Okay, you're seeing a black screen?
Yep.
Yeah, it says Gunstar MP4 VLC media player.
That's right. And that's it. That's all it does. What do you reckon? No,
It's better than Neutroid.
Kind of boring, but yeah.
Here it goes. Here it goes. Now, I don't know if it's too loud or too soft.
No, that's good.
It's okay. That's the title page. I'm up forward to the first level of the game. Up forward to the second level of the game. Yeah. The asteroid level. You've got to get the code to activate the warp gate. Basically, you're trying to save the Earth from alien invasion, and you're going to travel from your planet, Earth, to the alien home world. So this part is where we're going to an asteroid field to activate the warp gate. And that requires you to do the code down the bottom to work that out. When you do work that out, then have to hit the gatekeeper for the station in order to activate the warp gate. And it should blow up soon. Well, soon, I haven't got the top of. Here he goes. So that's the gatekeeper getting blown up. So the sound effects are coming out. Well, in this copy, it's coming out of the DAC, but it would on the game cartridge it was going to come out of the Orchestra 90. Here we are. We're about to jump into the warp mode, and we're entering the alien home world. And this is where another background music track will play. I'll just jump forward. See, the alien home world is well filled with aliens around to kill you. keep traveling until you get to the part of the alien homeworld where you see a lot of machinery, that moving machinery, which if you look on the ground, there's all those human bodies. The idea is that the aliens are abducting humans from Earth, taking them back to their planet, and then putting them into these big food processing units. This level is called the abattoir. So this is where they basically take the humans and chop them up and use them for food. So a bit morbid, but that's what they are.
Oh, chicken nugget maker.
And eventually, if I can just find it, eventually you'll come against the alien supreme leader. And he's somewhere up here. I'll let it just play. It's up here somewhere where the big box comes up. And he's the guy that you have to kill. And the music changes to a fairly hard rock track, and it intensifies.
Now these songs are all written by your son, weren't they?
Not this one. No, these ones. Usually, most of I've got free ones off the internet. Although the original plan was to get people from the CoCo community, or my son, to actually compile the background music. So, of course, I never got that far. The next track, when you see the alien, will be, well, my son was in a band at the time, and he gave me one of these tracks to do. So it should be approaching the end of the level where the alien superior, whatever I ended up calling it, will appear. Here it comes. The game gets pretty intense here. It throws everything at you. And I don't think I lasted very long. You see the borders flashing. That's indicating that you're about to die.
Yep.
And end it there. Mission failed. So that's it. That's the idea. So if I can go back to that project and use the MP3 player that Bruce is creating, then we might be able to resurrect that version of Gunstar that has music. And the idea is that you could actually change the music to any other sort of music that you would like by changing the tracks on the MP3 player.
Yeah, just rename them to whatever the game's calling for. And
Yeah, copy up different ones.
Will the software of the game automatically change the track?
Yes, that's
Okay,
the idea. So the software is controlling the MP3 player.
So you would have control when you send it out over the tracks it plays, so that the right song's playing with the right level.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. That wasn't just edited in. The game will actually choose the tracks. It'll actually control it while you're playing the game. So it has all the sound effects and the music all playing simultaneously while the game's playing. That's the whole idea, to make the closest we can to an Amiga game.
Okay. Well, with that, we need to push the button.
Okay.
This concludes another episode of the CoCoNation, the world's leading live interactive talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things the CoCoNation, visit us on the web at thecoconation.com. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to show@thecoconation.com. The CoCoNation show would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. The CoCoNation theme song, copyright 2022, D. Bruce Moore. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. The CoCoNation is over. Join us on the CoCo Discord server.
CoCo forever.
So what am I going to do with the next 2 hours?
Play
I
your
don't know.
CoCo.
Right.
But I
I'm sure your
better
wife. Would,
skedaddle.
I'm sure your wife would be interested in talking with you.
Yeah,
Mine
she
will
just
be.
came in the door, looked at me.
Okay.
Then we timed it perfectly.
Looked at you and said, "Great, I have to put up with you for 2 extra hours."
Anyway, Mark's got to run, so thanks everybody. Thanks Doug.
everybody.
Thanks Glenn for being our guest today. Thanks for an awesome game, Contras, and we will see you next week.
Adios.
Bye.